Starting the webinar, and we are now recording.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Downtown Task Force Community Task Force meeting number 14. We'll call to order this meeting. So I now call to order the meeting of the Downtown Community Task Force of February 18th, 2012. Staff, can you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Member Thompson.
Here.
Member Ondrasek.
Here.
Member Mayer.
Here.
Member Von Huen.
Here.
Member Vargas Smith.
Here.
Member Reed.
Here.
Member Coyne.
Here.
Member Ty.
Here.
And Member Varjani.
Here.
All present and accounted for.
All right, thank you. So then staff will read the Dctf procedures below into the record.
Thank you. The meetings are conducted by the chair in accordance with the following procedures. The chair of the DCF directs all activity during the meeting. Any item on this agenda may be continued to a subsequent meeting. Special procedures or time limits may be applied to any items as prescribed by the chair. Copies of the current agenda and staff reports for each item on the agenda are available online on the Downtown Precise Plan website, as well as the City Clerk's website. Chair?
Well, thank you. So we now have to move to the consent calendar.
The procedure for the consent calendar is as follows. Consent calendar items may be enacted or approved by one motion unless requested to be removed by anyone for discussion or explanation. We have one item on the consent calendar this evening, and that is item 1A, the Downtown Community Task Force meeting minutes of the January 21st, 2021 meeting.
Question, staff, is there meeting minutes from our special meeting?
There will be, those will be at the next meeting.
Okay, no problem. Just wanted to clarify.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Absolutely.
Is there a motion to close the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of closing the consent calendar from the January 21st, 2021 meeting, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries. All in favor. All right, we'll move on to general business. Moving on to general business items. Leslie, would you please announce what they are?
Our first item on the agenda is item 2, Franklin Forward proposal for a community-driven art initiative to reclaim the missing Franklin Street alignment. And I believe we have a presentation by Member Varjani.
Yep. And Leslie, could you also add Ari Daman to be a panelist? He's one of our on our working group.
Yes.
It's ARI.
Okay. You
Cool.
should be promoted.
Thank you. And should I have the screen share?
You should be able to, yes.
Cool. Thank you. Just let me know when you guys can see my screen. Wow, internet is blotchy in Santa Clara today.
Yeah, it just says it started, but we don't see anything yet.
Yeah, it's saying loading on my side either. Well, in the meantime, we can, wow, now my whole screen has gone black, so I really cannot even see you guys. Huh.
There we go.
We're starting to see something.
Oh,
Now it's white.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. Well, I can just get started. Sorry, you guys are seeing all my assignments on this presentation with the screen. Wow. Whew. Sorry, guys. I need. Deborah, do you want to just introduce us by the time I get some of these things started?
I see something now. It just came up.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got it too.
Yeah, I'm unable to.
Oh.
It's just, okay. Now?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes.
Okay, let me close a presentation which is overlapping on top of it.
Yeah.
Cancel. Oops. Sorry, guys. This was not what I expected it to start. I'm really sorry. Oh, okay, now.
It's a little too big. It's overflowing the screen.
Call 1-669-900-6833.
Now.
And you're not on mute.
Are those the lotto numbers, Dan?
No, that's a
Okay.
social security number.
Oh, yeah, great. Okay.
Atisha, do you want to go into the present mode?
I was in the present mode, and that's when my screen was blanking.
Okay.
It was just becoming black, so I'm gonna try my best to make this bigger. But yeah, I'm sorry for this hiccup. I wasn't hoping this to happen over Zoom. It usually happens over Teams, such things, not
Yeah.
Zoom. So, and I've presented it over Zoom to Cultural Commission, very same presentation. So not sure what's happening tonight, but I am just wanted to introduce the Franklin Forward Project. This is a project that some of us have been discussing, and I'll soon share who us are those, but just kind of it's an art initiative. And the purpose of presenting it today is just an FYI session to DCTF. We are not looking for any formal action from DCTF. It is just all of you are, all of us here are advocates for the downtown Santa Clara. So this is just a small, drop in the big bucket we all are envisioning and trying to bring to fruition. Just going to our team. This is our team for now. This is a working group, and this just came out of like me talking to people and people who have some interest in making this project real, also have some experience. And definitely, me, Anna, and Deborah pretty well. And I would just like Ari to introduce himself. Ari is a good friend of mine and has a lot of experience in public placemaking with tactical urbanism. And Ari, do you want to just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ari Daman. I am a landscape architect and urban designer. I have around 25 years of experience of working on those projects, but I'm also on the board of San Francisco Park Alliance, and before that with Place Lab. And so what I bring to the table here is experience of creating places using innovative methods. So that's what we do at Park Alliance and also at Place Lab. So that's why Atisha asked me to join and wanted to see if I can bring some of those things, innovative things that we are doing in the city in San Francisco to Santa Clara.
Thanks, Ari. Just quick, as I said, this is just an FYI presentation. We are presenting because our art piece is going to go within the precise plan boundary, but our understanding is that it in no way should impact this process. And that's why we don't want to burden the DCTF, but just want to keep you informed. And the idea is each one of you individually, please pitch in and advocate for this art project. What is Franklin Forward? It is a simple community building, placemaking initiative to reclaim the Franklin Street alignment on the city-owned property, which is, you see in this visualization, the idea is like we go as a community and paint that alignment on a parking lot. It's a underutilized parking lot right now, and with COVID, it's even underutilized. So why not we go and start bringing the essence of the downtown and the Franklin Street alignments, which is such a core to this group, just through art. And like art is like people, the community people going and painting it together. This is just a slide to show that this is not a permanent art feature. This is just to fill in the gap between where we are today to whenever the groundbreaking will happen on these city-owned parcels. So it is nowhere permanent in those sense. It is supposed to be, if anything that continues, is the essence of it being an art district should continue when, that's the footprint it should leave once the groundbreaking happens. The goals are pretty simple. It is to bring activation into our downtown now through tactical urbanism. And if many of you who may not understand the word tactical urbanism, it means quicker, cheaper, faster. You don't go and design and build everything. You use very cheap materials to test out an idea. You don't bring restaurants on it, you bring food trucks. So it's like just trying to see what's an easy, low cost, low liability way to start activating this street and the parking lot. In terms of our timeline, definitely COVID kind of like really kind of defines how participatory we can make this. But the idea is like from our communication with the city, we understand like there are 2 leases, one ending in September, one in April. Our idea if we can go in September to as hosting the community art day, but before that we will be needing to do a fundraising, a lot of community outreach, and then a call for an artist. So we want to do an open call for an artist where we invite an artist or a group of artists to define the pattern, and then the community goes and fills in the pattern. Our budget is also very moving in those terms because there are certain things we are very hopeful for, and the certain things we really want to get to. So if you want to get to our base budget, which is like paying for the artist and paying for the materials, it's about 20K, but then there are other legal costs if you want to continue maintaining this art. There are other discussions that we are wanting to go, so that's why you see a big budget number. But the idea is if you want to do continued programming over here, there are added costs on this thing. Otherwise, just painting and leaving this to be a surface parking lot again might not bring the change we are planning to. So if you want to continue to program it, there is a higher budget number to that process. And I just here also want to mention that Anna and Santa Clara Parade of Champions have agreed to be our fiscal sponsors. They are a local 501c3. So I'm very thankful to Anna because that really gives us a very short kickoff time. We don't have to register our own 501c3 or figure out how we deal with the funds very legally to keep IRS happy. So we are going with the fiscal sponsor. And as I said, just from DCTF, we are looking for individual support. We are looking for your interest, your intellect, if you have ideas. I don't want to go over the Brown Act violation with Franklin Forward. We have 3 people from DCTF already. So Leslie, wherever you feel that number is, but definitely don't want to, it's not connected to Precise Plan, but still want to be very careful that we are not impacting the Precise Plan process in any way. So Leslie, definitely looking for your guidance there. So yeah, thank you. And any questions? And I would say in interest of time, if we can keep the questions limited to how this process might impact DCTF, let's talk that. But if you have any other ideas on Franklin Forward, we will be hosting some other community meetings and online surveys to gather that input. So in interest of time, let's just talk about how or it may impact this process.
Thank you, Atisha. Appreciate the presentation and everybody else who's been working on it. I'll open it up to the DCTF members. Are there any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, I'd just like to say, I think this is an absolute great project. Thank you, Atisha, for bringing this forward along with the commission and the people who are working on it. Just a couple of quick notes, if I may. One, I would like to let you know, Santa Clara University is also interested in this project. We also have an extension of Franklin Street that would take it across the street. I'm not in a position tonight to be able to totally commit to it. You do have our community support on that, but if possible, we would like to be able to maybe extend some artwork across Franklin Street into the university. So I will keep you posted on that, and we could work in partnership, which we would like to do on that. A couple of the quick notes too. As you move forward, I would be hopeful that we look at a local artist. So we don't go to an artist that's in Ashland or San Francisco or LA, that we look at our local artists for that. And then the other piece of it is, I think this is a great project for highlighting the downtown. may want to have a conversation about how do we communicate to the community that this is about the downtown project and how we're connecting to the downtown project. The artwork is great, but there might be some other components that tie into the history of downtown or something like that, that really lets people know that we are truly moving forward on trying to rebuild the downtown and the project is moving forward. I think this is a great marketing PR tool for us, especially since the downtown project has died 5, 6, 7 times before. We're so much further down the road. I really think that this would be a great kickoff for that. You know, we could do some blow up photos of the downtown that could be put around that or whatever. Yeah, I think that's it. So congratulations. I think it's a wonderful project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Thompson, can I go next?
Absolutely.
I guess I'll just jump in. Yeah, this is great. It was a way to start energizing and getting things going. And it's similar to in McCall, Idaho. I brought this up early in the DCTF that they had some signage which talked about the redevelopment and what the process was. So just like what Butch said, I think some signage and possibly imagery. I can give you, I had brought it up at the initial DCTF about the language that they had on their sign, which was very inspirational. So I think it can have, again, just like Butch said, the more that you integrate into one thing, right, you know, you can get more bang for your buck. So, and as for curators, I mean, I know a very well-known art curator who worked on the parking garage, and Deborah knows him. He's certainly a resource. You can blame me for that, for putting you in touch, but he just has great ideas. And you know, he already did a favor to get the artist to work on that parking garage at a very low rate. So you probably hesitate to do it again, but he manages the art kiosk in Redwood City with a lot of local artists. So I will put you in touch, or Deborah can do that. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
But thanks for doing this. Very exciting.
Thank you, Rob. Is there
Dan,
any
you
other?
are muted. Dan.
Oh, Dan, you want to talk?
Rob, could you just send me?
But I think I got an echo.
Like-
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, so I'll keep it brief. Reclaiming Our Downtown is also very excited about this, that you can visually enlighten citizens on where Franklin Street is. And I think to echo Butch's point, if without restricting the artists, but if we could pay homage to a couple of the buildings that were sitting there, like City Hall or the theater or what have you, I think it'd be a real shot in the arm. And then Leslie, I'm going to drop off and try to get rid of this echo.
Okay.
Are you guys hearing it?
No.
Okay. All right. I'll see you in a minute. But way to go, Atisha.
Thank you.
Is there any other DCTF member that'd like to speak on this item before we open up the public comments? All right. Great job, guys. I echo a lot of the comments that have been made. It's awesome to see something get developed. So really appreciate it. Get excitement down here and make sure everybody really knows that Santa Clara actually does have a downtown, and that we're working on it to improve it. So thank you, Atisha, for spearheading this great community art project. So I would like to open it up to public comments on this item. Please keep your comments to a minimum, down to a minute at maximum. Please raise your hand or press star 60, star 9?
Star 9.
Star 9 if you are on a mobile device, and we will let you speak.
So far, I see no hands raised.
All right, I don't see any hands. Or last call for anyone in the public that would like to speak on this item. Please raise your hand now. Okay, seeing none. Oh, there we go. I got one.
Okay. We have Frank. If you unmute yourself, you should be able to talk.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I think it's a great project, great idea, and a great momentum builder. Yeah, I like it. Let's do it.
Thank you, Frank.
Awesome. Thank you, Frank. All right. Seeing that there are no more hands up, we have a motion. We have to close public comment, right?
Yes.
No. Okay. It's not on there, but I figured.
Oh,
Do we have a motion to close public comment on this item?
So moved.
Do we have a
Second.
second? Okay. All in favor of closing public comment on item 1A?
Aye.
Say aye.
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 Hi.
All opposed? Say no. Okay. Motion to close public comment is approved. So we'll move on to our second item of this evening.
so item number 3 is an informational presentation on the difference between a precise plan and a specific plan. And I will be giving that short presentation for you all. Just give me a second here to share my screen. Whoa, where'd you go? Okay, can everyone, does that look okay to everyone? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Just going to skip ahead a couple slides here. All right, so we've had a lot of questions about the difference between a precise plan or what's also more commonly known, a community plan or neighborhood plan, and a specific plan. So I tried to pare down most of the data as best as I could. There are some more things, but I put up here the high level things. So I'm just going to go over them for you, and then we can, I have 2 slides, and then you can ask any questions that you have. So first of all, a precise plan or community plan is a loosely defined planning document that allows communities to flexibly define their priorities for a defined area, emphasize their community priorities, and provide details as how to meet the community objectives. It refines policies of the general plan, applying to that geographic area, and it's implemented by local ordinance, such as land use and subdivision. On the flip side, a specific plan is a tool defined by state law, and it allows a customized set of development standards to be adopted for a specific property or area. So a specific plan could be, one 40-acre project, or it could be a whole 40-acre area like the downtown. It emphasizes concrete standards and development criteria. It has texts and diagrams that address infrastructure and facilities, as well as land use, open space, and it specifies programs and regulations that are necessary to finance the infrastructure and any public works projects. After adoption, a specific plan fee may be imposed upon development approvals, and the fee is to be established so that it defrays the cost of the preparation, adoption, and administration of the plan. So then just digging down a little more deeply, a community plan is part of the general plan, and it applies to a defined geographic area. Alternatively, a specific plan is not a component of the general plan. It's a separate adopted general plan implementation document. For a precise plan, there are no statutes in the California Government Code that specifies what it must contain. And so for a specific plan, there are statutory requirements for the contents. A precise plan does not have an emphasis on requirements for implementation, whereas a specific plan has required implementation measures, as I mentioned before, including programs, public works projects, financing measures that are all required to be identified. Community plans or precise plans may only be adopted or amended by resolution, and the number of amendments is subject to the limits that are set out for general plans. So that's 4 times per year. A specific plan may be adopted by a resolution or an ordinance, but there are no limits to the number or frequency of amendments that may occur. So that is all the information I have for you. There is a lot of information, but I tried to get the highest level, easiest things to pair them together. So if anyone has any questions or comments, please let me know. I have to go back and see you all. There we go.
Tisha, go ahead.
Okay. My kind of quick question in a nutshell will be, like kind of looking back to our scope, which all DCTF members have seen, and it was a part of the RFP. What difference do you see in that scope from precise plan? Because
Yeah. Oh,
what difference in that scope language do you see between specific plan to precise plan that we cannot take this process and turn into a specific plan?
So the biggest difference is that we weren't scoped to include all the utility analysis and requirements that are under a specific plan. So water, sewer, electricity, and as well as a public works project. So, you know, defining any specific requirements for new roads and the projects that would be required for those. That's the biggest thing that we were not scoped to do. There'd probably be a little added work on the environmental clearance side as well. And then our implementation section for what is scoped currently is not as detailed as what would be required for a specific plan. But otherwise, for the most part, I do believe we meet all the other statutory requirements for land use and circulation and design standards and guidelines and policies.
And if I may ask a follow-up question, has there been any discussions with the property owners? I know we are representing the city-owned parcels, but there are other property owners, like in which direction they would like this to go? Because we have like two big developers and they, you know, they have their choices.
We didn't have a specific conversation on whether or not it should be a precise plan or a specific plan. Nobody actually really brought that up, including some of the bigger property owners. That was not something that came up.
Okay.
I just want to mention, Dan texted me, he still has some audio issues, so he's still trying to get on.
Okay.
So hopefully he will be shortly. In the meantime, are there any other DCTF members that have any additional questions or comments on this item? Butch?
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. So if you complete a precise plan, does this and a specific plan, is that an either or if you do a precise plan, you could then move into a specific plan?
They are two separate things, yes. So again, the precise plan will be adopted into the general plan, where a specific plan stands on its own.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question.
Go ahead, Rob.
Leslie. So with the specific plan, it says there's, you know, laws that are associated with those statutes. And so with the precise plan, we would still have to do zoning amendments, right? As part of that, right? I mean, it's really like a general, more of a specific general plan for this area. So yeah, I'm sorry, a precise plan.
Yeah, it really refines, like if you look at that focus area section in the general plan on the downtown, it's really going to replace that section and, you know, add all of this work that we're doing instead of that there.
But with the specific plan, does that already fold in rezoning?
It's not necessarily.
No.
A lot of times it does, but it's not required. It can be a tool that you can use, but it's not required.
Okay, so it's not necessarily guaranteed that you have to do that. And because I was looking at, we talk about rezoning all the time.
Yeah.
You know, so, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Any additional comments?
So I kind of like going back to I know there was some detailed language about the implementation piece, even in the precise plan. So it will be good to understand that how much, you know, more we need, because I feel like public works project is the biggest project in this precise plan, the grid. And how can we fill in the gap to understand that? Like, it will be best for the developer to build it, like that's the best case scenario, but that they are not going to build all the utilities that are required for, you know, streetscape. Even if we don't bring the big utilities along Franklin Street, we will still need, you know, all the street lighting and other utilities to continue to maintain irrigation and other things to maintain the streetscape.
Leslie, can I, Chair, this is Manuel. Can I speak to that real quick?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, just make sure I don't know if I captured the full question, Atisha, so please correct me if I didn't capture it correctly, but I think it was related to who's going to be building the streetway, the frontage improvements, the utilities. And typically, and Leslie can jump in here as well, typically for any type of project like this, whether specific plan or development project, yes, the developers are responsible for building all the required infrastructure. The only instances with the city would, and of course the grid street where we don't have active developments would be a little different. And there's no funding for that as well for those segments, but the typical process is for the developer to construct it.
Correct.
So Manuel, just to clarify, so they would be responsible to construct the public right-of-way and utilities needed for their specific development that's adjacent to it. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things there, and I just want to clarify. That's typically what you do. However, when you have a precise plan or a specific plan, normally, for example, when you size utilities, you're looking at the overall need. So if you're building a sanitary sewer line or sanitary sewer main, you're not looking at what your specific project needs, but also how it fits within the overall specific plan as well, and they would build to that capacity. Same for a water line also. So yes and no, because when you have a bigger picture, you might overbuild it beyond what their need is to fit within the overall specific plan or precise plan.
Makes sense. So how would, when we're sizing the main lines, you know, how does that play in? Obviously, like, you know, for power instantly, if you're going to bring so many megawatts of lines in, how would the developer be responsible? Or does the city then chop up and say, well, this is what your KVA is? And I'm using that for power, obviously, because I know you're the director of SVP and I come from an electrical background, so it's easier to talk that way. So do they pay for just their KVA, and then that the city fronts the cost for the additional primary lines and then gets back paid at a future date, or how does that work for all utilities?
So the way, well, they're all different, but specifically for power, developers pay what's called a load development fee. And as part of the load development fee, they fund certain infrastructure associated for the project. If there's like major elements that go beyond the load development fee, not for this location, but say for a data center building their own substation, right? Then they fully fund that substation. For large specific plans or precise plans that we worked on in the past, sometimes it requires us to bring lines in that are not within that area. And that's not a downtown issue. We have lines here, that's more when you're kind of building housing in an area that currently doesn't have housing, that sort of thing, major infrastructure. So we'll work directly with the developers to fund that infrastructure to bring the power in. But the more typical approach is they pay the load development fee. As part of the load development fee, then that electrical gets constructed. For the utilities, at some point you have to do the analysis as to what's required. And this is not a huge area per se, right? So we, typically for something like this, you have very standard sizes for, storm, for sanitary, for water, right? Water is probably going to be driven more by heights than the number of units. So to make sure you can provide for that, the heights that you're going to be building out there. So we would have to look at the overall infrastructure to build it. I think just because the project is not, the size of it is not, I think we're at 10 blocks or 8 blocks. I forget the exact number right now. Yeah, it probably will be a manageable infrastructure plan to build out, with some minimum requirements to provide fire protection, sewer capacity. We run the models and figure out what those sizes would be. But they're not all, and I'm kind of talking about many different things because you don't calculate them all the same, especially electric is very different than water and sewer as an example.
Okay, thank you. All right, does any other DCTF member have any other additional questions or comments?
I had a question too. This is Anna. I know there was a downtown there before, and so there was infrastructure for that downtown up until 1963. So when you dig down into Franklin and Washington Street, will you find usable infrastructure that's still there, or was that removed?
I don't know if it was removed. I mean, I can tell you if there's pipes that have been down there since 1960, we would want to replace them at this point, but because they are close enough to end of life that you would not be you wouldn't want to risk using old infrastructure that's been sitting unused, and two, you wouldn't want to build something that you have to replace in 10 years, 15 years when it's at end of life anyway. So you would want to upgrade to current standards.
Okay, thank you.
Anna, I have actually the drawing. I think the lines were abandoned in 1972. Actually, that's when they started selling off the other parcels. So there is actually a city document that shows the abandonment of infrastructure down Franklin and Washington specifically.
Adam, what year was that again? Sorry, I didn't catch it.
72. I can send you the document.
Well, that's easy for me. That's the year I was born, so I know how old exactly the infrastructure was. And if knowing how I feel, I think the infrastructure needs to be replaced as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you wouldn't want to put in new pavement, sidewalks, everything, and then just to tear it up again. But I actually, when we were looking at the Franklin easement deal, there was actually a drawing we found that showed it being abandoned in 1972. So I'm sure that they've probably been capped and they're probably just abandoned in place.
Cool.
I just have kind of an overarching comment or concern to share is like, at some point it will be good to at least decide or define a path forward with our phasing, you know, how we kind of find the money or do creative things to finally connect, you know, through the Prometheus parcels. Once we get the easement, you know, like we have control over the city-owned parcels and they might get built. And, you know, even like the whole streetscape, you're not going to build a full asphalt street and it's going to die at Prometheus boundary, you know, like how all that transition happens. It might be too detailed, but it might be good to have WRT give an overarching, at least some decision-making process, like not define it, but just give us some guidelines how to decide.
Yeah, show what the interim would be. Yeah.
Because I would want the private developer to build it, but it just would look awkward.
Thank you, Antisha. So I still don't see Dan, but I'll ask my two questions if that's okay. If there's no one else from the DCTF that has any additional questions or comments.
Okay. Well, I mean,
I'll wait for Leslie.
Sorry, can you say that
No,
again?
you're good. You're all right. The fun of working from home. So I have two questions that have not been asked yet. So one is, in a precise plan, can we identify the zoning and overlay that over the entire area? And then that would be updated in the general plan zoning because it's part of the precise plan now. And then my second question is, how does the ability to implement form-based code differ between precise plan and specific plan? And does it even have a bearing?
So we could put in the implementation section, we could add a section on zoning. I mean, we can craft the precise plan itself to be with standards that are set up to just be translated into a zoning district quite easily. And that there could be an implementation action that would use those standards to create a new zoning district. That's something we could definitely do in the precise plan. And I see, hold on one second, Dan is in attendees. Let me just promote him really quick.
What does it say?
That worked?
There he is.
All right. Perfect. Okay. So yes, we could provide direction in the precise plan on that zoning. And then what was the second question?
How does form-based code come into play with either a precise plan or a specific plan?
So that would be a separate effort. And again, the form-based code would build off what we put in our precise plan. So again, all of those design standards that we're going to include, the form-based code would build off of that. You know, and we're going to be crafting these standards that would comply with a typical form-based requirement. Just because the way housing state law is working now, standards need to be objective, which is very similar to how a form-based code is written. So I think we'll be very well set up to easily transfer into, a separate form-based code, or even transferring our standards into the zoning code as its own district as is.
Okay.
Leslie, this is Andrew Crabtree, also with the city. I just want to add on to that. That I really don't think there is a difference between precise plan and specific plan in terms of building off of one of the documents to create a form-based code or other zoning district, right? So it's there's really no difference between
Right.
these two in that question.
Awesome.
Good point. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew and Leslie. Dan, I want to give you an opportunity. I know you had some difficulties. Do you have any comments, or you're on mute?
Okay, you got an echo. Yes, I do. How about now?
We don't hear an echo. Yeah, we don't hear an echo.
Oh my God.
It's
I
more
got a terrible echo. And that's why I jumped off. So I missed the differences between those. I can catch up probably with one of the other members. And I think you addressed the form-based code that could be adaptable to either or.
Mhm.
Okay.
Patricia, would you mind muting? Because I don't know if you might be the echo. I'm thinking, thank you. Sorry. Let's try to keep muted. Maybe, Dan, that helps.
Test. No, it's me. So I had to join by phone, and then I've got, what I'll try to do is disconnect the Bluetooth on this. Sorry, guys.
Dan, did you have any additional questions?
I guess as far as the specific plan, and I'm going to make you probably repeat what you said. Have you implemented that as a city versus a precise plan?
So we have the Tasman East specific plan right now in the city. I don't think we have any precise plans. Am I correct? Maybe Andrew, you can confirm that to me.
I think Rena's jumping on. Go for it.
Or Rena, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
this is our only precise plan.
Yeah.
We're working on, we did Tasman East, we have Patrick Henry Drive as well, and El Camino. They're specific plans.
The city doesn't have a long history of doing either, really. And we did with the Santa Clara, we did what was called a station area plan, which you could basically say was a community or precise plan. And that ended up getting absorbed into the general plan, in the 2010 general plan update. But it was in the general plan, we set up these focus areas and called for specific plans around Lawrence Station in Tasman East. And so we're really just following the direction that was set there and doing specific plans in those cases.
And the difference is the amendments. And that's something that, you know, we've always been a little hesitant in our group. So did you guys go into detail on that? Because again, I don't want you to have to repeat it on my behalf.
So if you can see my slide, it's still up there. It's the last bullet on each one. So a precise plan can be amended. It's subject to the limits of the general plan, so 4 times per year. And then specific plans can be amended. There's no limit, so any number of frequency of amendments.
And Leslie, just add on to that too, as a charter city, at least in the past, maybe there's a change now. We've done more than 4 general plan amendments per year in Santa Clara. So it's somewhat subject to legal interpretation.
Yeah.
But it's a lot. I mean, you know, you really don't want to, I don't think our intent would be to be amending either document that frequently. That would be a lot.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
I have one quick question. So how does the land use caps work in either or? Like, you know, at times in specific plan, you would say these many 1,000 square feet of residential and this how much commercial, and you kind of cap each land use so that you get the mix you want eventually in 15 years. How does that translate in a precise plan?
It's the same. There's no difference. We'd be planning the same land use plan, whether we were a specific plan or a precise plan.
And both documents are accompanied by general plan diagram amendments. That's where those numbers get set.
Guys, you can hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. Adam, you opened it up. The statutory requirements, could you give me an example of that?
Sure. I put them on the side here. Let me move my window.
Adam, aren't you glad you asked me to ask a couple questions?
I was hoping your internet wouldn't come back. No.
He always is.
Okay. All righty. Okay, so for specific plans, I'm going to, so there's about 6 items that are listed in the government code section. Distribution, location, and extent of land uses, including open space. Distribution, location, and an extent of intensity of major components of public and private transportation, sewage, water, drainage, solid waste, energy, and other essential facilities to be located within the area. Standards and criteria by which development will proceed. Standards for the conversion or conservation of land, but that's not really natural resources. That doesn't really apply to us. A program of implementation measures that includes regulations, programs, public works projects, financing measures necessary to carry out all of the things that I just mentioned in the other sort of bullet points. And then a statement of relationship of the specific plan to the general plan.
And when you say there's no statutes
for a precise plan
on the precise plan, so none of what you listed
is required.
It is required. It's all up to the citizens or to the group to create this precise plan.
You are correct. It's more about community priorities.
Got it.
And objectives, yes.
It seems more streamlined because you're not having to get into the nuts and bolts of all this infrastructure cost and stuff. And we're going to put that on the developer. You know, that's part of the, you know, incentivizing them because that's part of the equation, right? What works for them. But yeah, it seems more streamlined. So it seems like a positive in that direction.
Yeah.
So one more clarifying questions, and this is Dan, glad you asked that question. So I know like by law, California does not require precise plan to have all these details, but we are working on a lot of those details like open space and, you know, some of the other aspects. So if you write it into the precise plan, it will still become a regulatory document that when it gets built, people have to build to those standards.
Yes.
And it is it is enforceable by the city at a later date. I think that's what you're getting.
Yeah, it becomes part of the general plan, and the general plan is our guide for how the city should develop. So any project coming in, we look for conformance with the general plan, which tells us what we should be building and how it should be built.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone have additional comments, questions before we open it up to public comment? Okay. So I'd like to open it up to public comment. Please raise your hand and we'll call on you. I see a hand, Mary Grizzle. Please keep your comments to a minute or less, please.
Oops. Oh. She just disappeared. Where'd she go?
She might have lowered her hand.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Okay, allow to talk. Okay, Mary, you should be able to unmute yourself and speak.
All right. Can you hear me now?
We can, yes. Mary, good evening.
Good evening. You guys have put something in my brain that I'm going to be up all night thinking about. We hired WRT to do a precise plan, right?
Correct.
And the city is going to do a specific plan.
No, we're only doing a precise plan.
What is the specific plan and who does that?
It would be done by a consultant as well. So this presentation really was for the task force members and everyone to understand that there are 2 sort of planning processes, and we're doing a precise plan, but there is this other one called a specific plan. But we are only doing a precise plan. That's what we hired
Okay, so
WRT to do.
we're doing the precise plan,
Yes,
and that's what we're paying WRT for, right?
correct.
And then you talked about a general plan. Is that the plan that the city, that the precise plan will go into the general plan, right?
That's correct. It'll be a part of the general plan.
So why are we concerned with the specific plan? Why
I think
couldn't that, instead of being a specific plan, why couldn't that be the form-based code?
Well, Mary, so we asked for this definition, these two definitions, to be brought forward at the task force because both terms get thrown around as being the same thing, but they're two very different processes. So we wanted to understand what the difference was between the two and what abilities we had as a DCTF and a community to implement in the precise plan. So it's really just more of an educational to make sure we don't throw the two terms around as the same thing, since they are two different processes. Does that make sense?
We're not going to be doing anything with the specific plan.
We're not going to be doing anything with the specific plan, correct?
So it'll be the precise plan, the general plan, and hopefully the form-based code.
Correct. And so the precise plan will get brought into the general plan, and it will be an amendment. Is that what it's called? Amendment to the general plan? So it will be overlaid in the general plan. So when you go to the general plan document on what is the vision from the community, it will have all of the work that has been put forth by the DCTF and community during this process.
Thank you.
And Mary, just to confirm, we did ask the question if form-based code could be a part of the precise plan, and it can.
Thank you.
Yep. No problem.
Now you can sleep.
Now I can sleep.
I was testing my audio and I don't have an echo.
Yay.
Perfect.
Mary brought me good luck.
All right.
All right. Are there any additional hands from the community before we close public comment on this item? Please raise them now. All right. I don't see any hands. Do we have a motion from the DCTF to close public comment?
So moved.
Second.
I second.
All in favor of closing public comment on item number 3, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. All right, the motion passes. Thank you. So now we'll move on to item number 4, which is discussion on submitting a comment letter for the project proposed at 906 Monroe Street. This was something that we had heard on the January 21st meeting. I guess I'll kind of start. It's unfortunate, but I think we just received some information from the developer late yesterday. I haven't actually even had a chance to open it up myself due to some scheduling items and whatnot. I think I know I was hoping to get the information earlier so we could have sent it out to the DCTF members in order to get concise comments based on the plan being proposed. And so that way it can potentially move forward with those comments in hand when it went to planning and council. I think at this point, we reviewed it, and the city has waited a long time for the downtown to be developed. We've had one project get developed on the corner of Monroe and Benton and Franklin. I don't know, if that would have been what would be the vision for that area or not. But I think the city's waited long enough in the community, and I think that the precise plan should be completed and developed fully before we continue to process projects. Now, I want to remind everybody that we are only a recommendation to the Planning Commission and Council. We are not a decision-making body. And so potentially we will just provide our recommendation to them based on what we heard and what we feel is the correct procedure moving forward. So I'd like to open it up to the DCTF members to discuss this item openly, and then we can decide how we would like to proceed. Is there any DCTF members that would like to comment?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Deborah.
Yeah, I was able to review briefly the new information that we got yesterday, but without further discussion with the developer, it's very hard to understand, for me, to understand what changes, if any, were made as the result of our previous meeting with him. So are we looking tonight to give any kind of approval or, just saying yay or nay to passing this on to the Planning Commission?
So we don't give approval.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we don't give approval or rejection. All we do is provide comments. So we would have potentially provided a letter with our comments and recommendations for how to improve the project or how it would potentially meet or not meet what we envisioned for that block prior to us actually being able to complete the precise plan. Or we can recommend that the development be held until the precise plan is completed to make sure that it does meet the precise plan and the potential form-based code that we're going to develop.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Butch, go for it.
So just for clarification, when we started this process, if I'm remembering correctly, we had an 8-block area that we were working with the original downtown. And then did we not incorporate this section into the downtown process at some point back?
That is correct. That's correct.
That's correct. So oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So it seems to me that since we took that action a while back, we should make sure we include this in our process and wait till the precise plan is put together, move forward, and our recommendations are made to council. So I would agree with your position. Thank you.
Thank you, Butch.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah. Yes, Dan.
Oh, Tisha, go ahead.
Go ahead, Dan.
I also concur with that. And the reason is if you take a look at the history since 65, we've had Franklin Mall, kind of go out and not, stop. And then there's another mall down on Lafayette, and a courthouse is plunked down on Main Street, and a sprawling apartment complex. So it's been parcel by parcel by parcel by parcel since 1965. And we see buildings that are not talking to each other. There's no symbiotic relationship at all. And what's missing is a precise plan. When we came together, 2 years ago, it was prior to, I believe, Mr. Lamb buying this property. So he knew that this plan was in the works. And, I'm not attacking him, but in fact, I like the improved building, but I would highly advocate for the citizens that have waited 55 years for this downtown that we wait for the precise plan, not only for this development, but anything else that comes along. To Butch's point, we have the responsibility to these 10 blocks, and I think they need to be planned. The house needs to be planned before we start building rooms.
Thank you.
And I would even put together a motion, for this group to, document that and put that recommendation to council.
Thank you, Dan. One thing I should note is, there was the specific plan for El Camino Real, and council at the time did not put a moratorium on providing or submitting plans for any properties that were in the specific plan, but they did note that anything that would be submitted between the time the specific plan was started to when it would be ended would be looked at, very rigorously to make sure that it would meet the potential ERC plan. So I don't think, again, this body would just be making a recommendation that we would potentially, want it to wait for us to finish. But yes, I just want to make sure it's clear. Is there any other, Tisha?
I kind of feel a little opposite, not opposite, but otherwise, I would say the right word of like, stopping the project to happen until we are able to write a precise plan, because it's a significant cost to a developer. And if we cannot commit to a timeline by when we will be done with a precise plan, it just seems a little unjust from that perspective. But if, and at the same time, I would really push the developer to follow what we have decided till date precisely in their proposal. So like update, I personally have sent very detailed comments to Leslie about how it should be brought and updated to align with the precise plan. And we have spent a full meeting, like 3 hours discussing it. So yeah, if the developer respects those comments and changes the design before going to planning commission in the city, I would say we should do it. Why wait? It will give us, a test of what is feasible. Like it will give a big clear feasibility test for us, like what fits on the side and heights and other things that we can correct in the rest of the places. I see it that way. But if we cannot commit a timeline of when the precise plan can be done, I just don't see a reason to stop any development happening. That's just my reasoning.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I mean, again, I just want to remind everybody that this developer knew a precise plan was coming when they decided to start purchasing and assembling property. And so they knew the risk they were taking when they purchased it. And I think that this body, having them come to the January 21st meeting, we had to kind of squeeze them in and get it and allocate a lot of time. And it cost us a month, basically. I want to remind everybody of that. And we were willing to work with them. And the lack of sending us the information that was requested after that meeting to be able to actually analyze it and see what the proposal was and provide comments based on that proposal was, lacking. And so unfortunately, I don't feel that this body should spend any more time because of your comment now where, we can't commit to a timeline because we keep getting these things that are slowing us down. And I think at this point in time, it's more dangerous to let something potentially go through that would undermine this precise plan's, regulations. And if we end up, this project gets approved prior to the precise plan getting approved at council, and it doesn't meet within the guidelines that are set forth in the precise plan, then it basically undermines the precise plan before it even gets started for the next development. And that to me is way more dangerous than holding somebody who knew that this project or this precise plan was being developed and decided to move forward anyway. That was the risk that they chose. So that's.
So then, sorry, were you
done?
So then would our recommendation or, whatever letter we submit going forward, would that be the DCTF's position, basically that this development will be under the purview of the precise plan, and any finalized development plans would need to meet the recommendations of the DCTF?
We can put any motion we want forth on what we want in the letter. And if we wanted to be specific on those requirements, we absolutely could.
I also wanted to comment.
Yep. Anna, go ahead.
I do echo what Atisha is saying, and I do understand what Deborah is saying. I feel like that there is a middle ground as far as creatively creating this design. I think they've shown a willingness to listen to the neighbors and to engage the community, engage us on a variety of levels. But I also think what Atisha was saying was, can they work in tandem while the entire time working with us and every stakeholder in the area with that same willingness, and still complying with the precise plan, like crossing the finish line at the same time, all of us together and in alignment. Is that a possibility? Is that something we can consider as part of the process?
I think we've already, go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
Maybe Rena was going to address this.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to give people a little bit of information on timeline for the project, the 906 Monroe project. So that includes a general plan amendment and a PD zoning, and would ultimately need to get a site development permit, right? What we call an architectural review permit. So this project has had its community meeting. There has not been any environmental document that's been circulated on it. And I think it's pretty early in the preparation process of an environmental document. So I just wanted people to know that in the bigger scheme of how long this is going to take for that particular project to get to an approval body, so planning commission and then city council for actual approval of the project, it's, at least probably 6 months out, at least. I mean, there are probably other issues like, we have to see if there is a significant impact when they do their analysis and if we need an EIR or something like that. But just in terms of like, we have the precise plan process, right? And that is going to take us a while. And there's also the interest in developing a form-based code to implement those standards, right? So I just want everyone to kind of be aware of like the way that this particular project is progressing is, even though it'll take a while, it'll probably still be less time than when the precise plan with the implementation actions are like completely tied up. The next step for the precise plan is really forming a land use plan. And this group has been moving forward pretty close to, setting densities for this precise plan. And that is an important stage for this process because it at least allows the group to have informed what do they think they want densities on different sites. So that particular milestone for this group is relatively near, but to the milestone of what are the exact heights that are out there, like if really the interest is in a form-based code getting implemented, that's a further milestone. So I just wanted to throw these pieces of information for you guys to kind of contemplate as you're kind of talking about how you, want to intersect with this project.
Thank you, Rena.
I'd like to.
Matt, I believe, well, Matt was next.
That's okay. Yeah.
Matthew? No, you're good? Okay, Rob?
Yeah, I want to look at from a higher level view of this project and how it's progressed. And I think the greatest challenge is, we've talked a lot about heights and form with this whole downtown area, right? And we just got to that end of the project area, and we started saying maybe 4 or 5 stories and stuff like that. Well, it's more about the form. I mean, we haven't even gotten to number of units. It's the volume. I have greater issues with height and volume, and the houses are to be saved, but then we see something else. But there's not enough discussion. I've had some working sessions with previous projects in the city where we actually sat and talked about the mix. Did it with Silicon Sage at one point, but kind of lost track of that one. Just reminder, Silicon Sage proposed 60 something units originally, and it got knocked down to 44, okay? So I've said this in previous meetings that I don't know if 61 is the right number. We're starting to talk about the height and figure out how all the height and everything works with this downtown. And we're not even there yet. We're talking a little bit about architecture and stuff. So it's been sort of, I don't know, it's been frustrating for me. I'm sure it has been frustrating probably for the developer as well, but it's hard to focus on the precise plan and then focus on that project. Like we have 1 meeting a month, and I tend to think that, I've said this before, that I think, we should basically wait till the precise plan is further along before we start approving projects. So,
no, thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
I mean, to your point, and I know you raised your hand, Dan, to your point about the 1 meeting a month, and Anna, you mentioned, can we do it together? We tried, and I don't think we got the same commitment from the developer as we had hoped that, and we had shown that we were committed to allowing them to take a significant portion of our time and delay us in being respectful and sending the information so we could actually, really actually have some time to review. the documents that were provided to us on the 21st were significantly different than the documents provided in the community meeting in December. And so I think it caught us, a lot of us, significantly off guard, and not really prepared for providing comments as quickly as I believe the developer hoped, because it had significantly changed from, the houses being relocated to alternate properties to keeping them but putting a podium deck underneath them, which, if anybody realizes, a podium deck is going to tie those houses to the overall development forever, and it's going to be the same project. And the general plan, this thing needs a PD, which is plan development, which has been something that this community has strongly opposed multiple times on other projects, because it doesn't fit into the fabric of the neighborhoods. And we would rather see variances and or zoning adjustments to comply, versus just giving a carte blanche free pass for anything that gets cooked up on a set of drawings. So I know I'm probably being a little harsh here, but I'm pretty frustrated that the drawings didn't come until the night before this meeting, after multiple attempts to get them in a timely fashion so that we would be able to review. So Dan, go ahead.
I just want to, this is more of a question. These are income producing properties right now, aren't they?
They were income producing. I don't know if they're rented or not. I think some of them are, because Senores is there, and I believe, but I don't know about the two houses. But
okay, so when he bought this, there was income, or could be potential income, that could be derived during this period of wait. And from what Rena said, to maybe they're 6 months ahead of us. He's got to wait out 6 months, but there's income coming in.
It seems that way.
Okay.
I see the developer, Sal Caruso, has got his hand up, so he can clarify when it's public. So are there any other comments or questions? Atisha got her hand up just slightly before you, Butch. Quick draw.
My just kind of other points, I mean, just a quick question, mostly to Leslie and Rena, is like, what are the other checkpoints behind the committee meetings that the community already has had with the developer to comment on the design and, just align it with the precise plan? Is there a process? Because that's, I think, a bigger concern. If we don't have any checkpoints to align this project with the precise plan, then we end up with a project that we don't like, versus, is there, I know that once things are in sequence, everything is about numbers, but we are concerned more about the aesthetics.
Yeah, since this project has been redesigned since the initial community meeting, we certainly would ask the developer to provide another community meeting to the larger community, even at this stage with the rezoning and general plan amendment stage, because it's essentially a very substantially different project. And then really we would have to see, how this project evolves, the amount of modifications or changes. Some of them could be in many ways positive that respond to the community, but still there's a need to come back out to the community. So I would say at minimum for this stage of the project, one other community meeting, and then really through the architectural review process, because that would be a subsequent application, we would encourage at a minimum one other community meeting. But given the sensitivities of everything that we're talking about here, that's probably going to be a more involved community process than just one community meeting. So there are going to be more touch points with the community as this project progresses. But yeah, that's all I can offer.
Thanks, Anna. Butch, you had your hand.
Thank you, Chair. Rob had mentioned that we need to look at this project from a higher level, and that's kind of how I'm looking at it. We've talked all along about, as I said earlier, bringing these blocks into the downtown area and having a vision for them. We've had several conversations about the gateway into the downtown, and we've all talked about Lafayette and Franklin Street being that main gateway. But Dan also brought up a point in one of our meetings that said we also have to think about the other end, the Monroe Street entrance, because we will be having people come from that direction. And I feel that especially since we are now incorporating Monroe Street, which ties into Valley Fair and a possible main thoroughfare, bringing it into the downtown. That Monroe Street plan has to be a gateway also into our downtown. And my concern is that we're going to end up again with pieces that don't tie together. That's not an inviting piece that takes you to Monroe Street and says, hey, I'm in downtown Santa Clara. Let me stop and see what's going on here. So I agree with you again, Adam. I think it's very important that we complete this precise plan, make sure that that Monroe Street works well, because it is a drawing card like Franklin and Lafayette will be. We can't get it wrong. We've got to get it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Butch. Are there any other comments or questions, or does someone want to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Are we taking public comments?
Right.
Yes,
Sorry, I think we'd have to take public comments first. I apologize.
Okay.
So if there's no more comments from the DCTF members at this time, we'll open it up to public comment. So please, if you're in the public, please raise your hand and we'll call on you individually. Please, you have 1 minute to speak on this topic specifically. So I see Sal Caruso.
One. Okay, Sal, you can unmute yourself and you should be able to speak.
Yes, I am. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So first of all, we knew nothing of the prospect of being held up until a precise plan was completed. That was never discussed openly or in any fashion with us at any point. This came up just through your committee most recently. So to say boldly that we knew what we were getting into, that there would be delays, et cetera, is absolutely false. Let's just to set the record straight. Secondly, the main difference that the documents were so dynamically different from the community meeting that we had, that was a very good community meeting, and then resubmitted on December 21st, is because we responded to the community's input, to the calls to preserve the two homes on location. That was not to deviate from something that was better. We actually turned the ship around to make it better, to comply with the community's input. Most importantly in this whole process is that this process will go on for another year. If you're saying you're going to be done in a year, we will reach the finish line at the same time with your input, with coming back to you as a committee again, at least one time, maybe 2 times. And as Rima so accurately has stated, we're going to go out for at least 1 more community meeting, probably 2. Typically on our projects, we do 3 community meetings to make sure that the community is being addressed, listened to, understood, and more importantly, responded to through our architecture. So that's what we do as a firm, and that's why we've been here located in Santa Clara for decades, doing exactly that, what Rob Meyer does and others do, where we listen attentively and we produce architecture that works for the community. So absolutely, this is a project that should move concurrently with the precise plan and be something that we can be proud of, rather than just cut off because someone is offended. That is inappropriate.
Thank you, Sal. We appreciate it.
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
And next speaker from the public, Skip Pearson.
Skip, you can unmute yourself. You should be able to speak. No?
I think you unmuted me again instead of Skip.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was eating dinner. I enjoyed your conversations. I'm a business person. I'm in real estate. I have a legal background. I know that developers in this area put up huge amounts of money, and they have the choice of what they're going to do usually, but they get public input, especially when they're trying to create something that hasn't been there for 55 years. But as far as most of the people in Rod are concerned, we want the downtown to start. And the way you get it to start moving is to get the 2 ends complete. And this structure, however it ultimately is designed and built, will complete the westerly end of downtown. Then we can concentrate, as you all are doing now, on the westerly end, because the city has huge control and the university have huge control as to blocks A and B that face Lafayette. We get the western done and the eastern done, and the infill will just happen quickly and beautifully. But we've got to get it started. And to delay this kind of thing, when you have a developer that's trying to work with the public, trying to work with the immediate neighbors, let them work in tandem with you. Don't drag it out. He wants to help. He wants to do and listen to what you have to say.
Thank you, Skip. Appreciate the comments.
Sure.
We have one more hand up from the public. Mary Grizzle.
Mary, you should be able to unmute yourself and speak. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would like to know, when we first hired WRT, the completion date for the project was spring of this year. And then it got pushed over to summer. At the last meeting, I heard that it was going to be pushed out again till January before it's complete. I don't know how there could be such a variance in wait time. I mean, we've had COVID. They should be hunkered down working on this project. Why is it being continued and continued? I'm so sick of all the delays. I'm just absolutely sick of all the delays. I don't know if they're city spurred. I don't know if they're planning spurred or WRT spurred or the task force, but I'm sick of them. I want my downtown before I die. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mary. I see one more hand up, DW. I'm not sure.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Adam. This is Donna West.
Hi, Donna.
I'm with Reclaiming Our Downtown, and I'm upset. I'm with Mary. We want our downtown, and we want it now. There's been 6 failed attempts before this. We want a precise plan so we can put something in place and not have to think about going forward. Mountain View is doing it right now. I have data from the public meeting that we told Sal, did you reach out to people before, and tried to get him to do that? So what he just told us is not correct. Go back and re-listen to the meetings that we had. We want this now. And that's, I'm with Adam, I'm with Bruce, I'm with Rob, and I'm with Dan. So let's get this plan in. Don't do project by project. I'm living with ECR, Benton, and Lawrence Expressway right now that has no trees and no plan. And it's a fail from the city. And it's a tech community housing that people cannot afford to live in. So if you want to go see a plan, go look at that development. There is no shopping in front of it. It's a complete fail by the city. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Donna. Are there any additional comments from the public? I see one more hand. Lucy. Lucy,
you can unmute yourself. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm in agreement. I mean, the whole point of adding these 2 blocks were for these 2 blocks to be part of the precise plan. So I'd like to see some follow through on that. And just because the developer is in some kind of financial predicament, that is no excuse not to be part of this plan, to be honest with you. In terms of what Lamb has purchased, those are all income producing properties. So he's not losing any money. He's got income coming in with the 2 homes, Windermere, and the pizza place. So anyway, that's my thought. I agree with Adam, with Dan. We need to make this part of the precise plan as we move forward.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
All right. Any additional members of the public who have not spoken on this item? Motion to close public comment.
Adam, is there a chance of a comment?
We can still talk about it. We can still talk and then make the motion. I just need a motion to close public comment.
Make the motion to close public comment.
Second.
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 Thank you. All in favor of closing public comment, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, the ayes have it. Public comment is closed. Thank you for everyone who spoke in the public on this matter. So now we can take in what we heard and we can have further discussion and or make a motion.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, Rob.
Okay. I've been in this city for 18 years and had a hard time living in the city as an architect, mainly because of seeing how it's been built out. And that goes down to the senior center that I call the senior sound wall. That wall that faces Monroe looks like a freeway sound wall. It's concrete block. That was the first dagger in my heart about this town. Okay. Then I got involved with the planning commission and got on the architectural committee because I thought I wanted to make a difference in this town. I have yet to see a fabulous project in this town. Okay. And I want a downtown. I came from San Francisco. I lived there for 8 years, wonderful years before I moved down here. I grew up in Cupertino, but it's important to do it right. And it's too easy these days to build something and not do it right. Silicon Sage building next door is an example of that. And I tried to get involved with that and tried to fix that project for free, you know, meeting with their architects and the developer, and it didn't go well. Okay. So we all want a downtown, but you can't be in a hurry. We've had 6 or 7 failed attempts. We have a great group of people here with lots of diverse background. That's the unique thing that's going on right now. And I'm tired of seeing projects go up that are one-offs. They don't synergize and connect and grow our city community, a sense of community. So that's as much as I'm going to say right now.
Thank you, Rob. Deborah?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. From what I understand, based on our earlier comments, it's not our position or our privilege to say whether these 2 blocks are in the precise plan or not. The fact is that they are. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we won't need to make a motion about whether or not, or a recommendation about whether or not they're in the precise plan. They are subject to the precise plan that we're developing, particularly the form-based code that we are developing. And that would apply to at least the ground floor and possibly the architectural flavor. Is that correct?
We don't have the ability to do the form-based code at this time. It's something we have to go and ask council for, but we would be able to implement zoning and density guidelines at the bare minimum.
Okay, and would that zoning include the ground level application, whether it's retail or
it would include uses.
Uses,
and
okay.
density.
Okay.
But it will also include design standards.
It can, yes, it can include design standards as well. Sorry, I was just trying to answer her question specifically. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair.
Dan, go ahead.
So I want to address a couple of the public comments specific to reclaiming our downtown. I actually concur with Skip that, you know, it is a bonus. Monroe, as Butch pointed out, is another entranceway into the downtown. It's a super important corner for us. I got my echo back, sorry. But, you know, to say we have different people in the downtown core that believe in different things, and we're all free folks to say what we think. I have to speak to what I think our goals are, our 5 main goals are. And this precise plan, you know, that was our mandate to come in here and do that. And it was well established in the beginning. And I don't want to argue with Sal on that, but you know, that's why we're here, to do that. To address Mary's comment on why this has taken so long, this is a perfect example of why we got delayed 2 months. You know, we've got somebody coming in saying, hey, I'm going to build a building. And now we've got to review it. We got to say what we don't like. They come back, we got to review that. And it, you know, it's hours that is coming away from the precise plan, which is the very reason why we're here. So we have to, I think we have to address this, but we have to also, as a group, really address the fact that unless it's something hair on fire, we got to address a precise plan, and that's it. And to Rena's point, and actually to Sal's point, we could get there. You know, if we focus on this thing, we're close on the land use, on the concept board, on precise planning. I think we're close if we keep focused on this. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Dan. Are there any additional DCTF? Atisha?
I would just kind of have people, this is just a great example of how like we should write a community engagement process for future projects in the precise plan, you know, because 1 or 2 meetings are not enough, will not be enough then too. So like how the community has involvement in deciding the look and feel of the precise plan, even after the form-based code, there is so much that happens. And I think we just need to learn lessons from this process and write it down, a community engagement plan for projects to come.
Great comment. Leslie, are we able to dictate that, like have a specific community engagement process within the precise plan? And can we actually implement like having, I think Rob had mentioned it earlier, like collaboration sessions where they're actually up there sketching and talking about it, instead of just, you know, I've been to a lot of community engagement meetings where they're just, I see Rob laughing. They're just easels with pictures of pretty buildings from other areas. And they're like, we're going to do a little of this, little of that. And it really never, you know, the end product is not what they show. They show usually the coolest pieces of buildings. And then we get kind of more of a more vanilla box, unfortunately. So is that something we can actually?
That's something I would have to do a little research on. I mean, you could include policies in the precise plan, but the city does have a community outreach policy itself that's a standalone council policy, which I think is probably where that regulation should lie, since we do have a policy. You could probably do some guidelines around what you would expect through a community process, but I would need more time unless somebody else has some input on that from city staff to
Rena does.
figure that piece out.
Yeah. No, I think that definitely you could put in some higher expectations around community engagement, given all the sensitivities, you know. The only thing is just to not burst everyone's bubble, right? The state is like creating all sorts of weird new things now about how they don't want people to go through extensive different meetings. And so I think we'd have to look at that more because, and not saying this is applicable for every project, but we just want to kind of want to be full disclosure about like if 100% affordable project came forward. I think the state now has some new kind of limitations on how long we can take to process those applications or how much engagement we can have, or even the things that we can ask for. And that's why development standards are really, like you guys have been really zeroing in on an important thing, like making sure that what we have codified is what we want, because that is going to be, you know, whether it's today or just the direction that the state's going, that's going to be what gives us the most voice and enforcement at the end of the day. But I really think that you can put some more standards in. It's just really a matter of if time will tell if those standards will apply for, you know, all housing or certain types of housing or whatnot. But that's my personal impression, is that, you know, we could create something different. And, you know, in general, I think we are trying to update, modernize our city outreach policy. So, you know, this is something that in parallel, both things could like work really nicely together, or, you know, there could be a different emphasis for downtown, that it's more on like the actual architecture versus often community engagement is about other things like the uses in and of themselves. So those are just my thoughts.
No, thank you, Rena. I would, you know, echo some of your comments. I mean, I hope that this precise plan will actually streamline the process, because hopefully 80–90% of, you know, if we are able to and are allowed to develop a form-based code along with this, it would guide the developer very closely to what the expectation is. And so we would actually remove a lot of the community meetings by doing this extensive process now. I think it's just really important to make sure, you know, that the community engagement process that we have currently as a city, I know has kind of failed us on a few very rare cases, but it has, based on people living close to some of the more industrial areas and stuff, which we obviously don't have on any of this area. But yeah, I think I'm hopeful that it actually streamlines it, because there's a lot of meetings that I think a lot of us have gone to over the years that we wish we could get the time back. So.
Well, and Adam,
I just want to clarify, my comment was exactly in that line, to streamline it. And maybe like, I think the formal check-in happens after the developer puts in a full application to the planning department, and that's a big load to do it. And what if there are ways to come in when it's a very conceptual level, so they can have an early input, so they don't have to invest so much in putting a full planning application, because those are costly.
Yeah. No,
well, the one thing I wanted to add, I mean,
doing it sooner and doing more like online surveys than like doing it once it's a project.
One of the biggest things here, I mean, we spent a lot of time on height, and that's probably the most concerning thing for most residents, especially when you're on the fringe near housing and whatnot. And it's creating a very smart way to upsize to the downtown core, right? And streamlining will come, I think, once you say, here's the envelope that you can build within. It might mean the developer has to say, okay, well, I need to get 40 units or 50 units, but maybe I need to shrink the size of the units to get the number of units I need. You know, it forces that creativity. I'm always get more creative when people push me into a little box, right? I just keep fighting and trying to tweak it. And so that's the hard thing for me, is that until we get this sort of form or the volume and where that's going to be, it's hard to weigh in on projects because it all works together, you know. And the sound wall, that's, I call the Bookser box. That's the other one. So it's a big box, right? So that's another building in town I'm not happy about. And you know, we want to change things here. We want to the outreach meetings. I've got huge issues with it, because, you know, the Coleman garage was a classic example. They had several community outreach meetings. They kept throwing more black panels on a boring parking garage to try to make it look better. And in the end, architectural committee said, why don't you meet with a few community members, architects. We hashed it out in 45 minutes. And what we got was way better than what they spent 2 meetings on, taking community input. So, you know, we can do it better. And I'm always available to try to figure out what's a good process. But sometimes it's just getting the people that technically know how it works together with the developer to get to a quicker resolution, you know. So
thanks, Ron.
Yeah.
I mean, well, the last thing I'll say, I think, is there any other comment? Oh, Deborah, go ahead.
Yeah, just a point of clarification. So what decision do we need to make tonight on this topic?
any decision we want. If we want to do nothing, we can do nothing. If we want to send a letter recommending that this process move forward with more community outreach, we can do that. If we want this, recommend this project waiting until the precise plan is complete and that it conforms to whatever precise plan we develop, we can do that. We can do, we're just a recommendation is all we're providing. So we can recommend anything. That's it. That's it. So the only thing.
So again, though, it's not our place to recommend that this be included in the precise plan because it already is.
It already is.
Right.
It's
Okay.
just how to handle this project coming before the precise plan is finalized and developed. That's really the action that we're taking tonight.
Okay.
So
We're just making a statement to council.
yeah. So, real quick, I mean, I know, I've been accused of multiple times of potentially, stalling on projects and whatnot, but I'd like to remind everybody that every time that there has been a stall, it ends up being that there's something in the community that we get. And it's for a reason. It's not for personal gain or, because, somebody did something that, upset me. It's because there's something missing from the project that could better integrate into the existing and future community. And like Rob said earlier, it's something that Santa Clara has lacked for the last 60 years. I mean, I'm lifelong Santa Clara born and raised, and it's sad. We haven't had a downtown. We haven't had an El Camino. We haven't had places to go. Why do we always leave our city? And I think that's why all of us are here and spending as much time as we are. And I think it's really important not to, discredit our time and our energy, as well as staff's energy and time and the money put forth by the city to develop this plan. And it's a little disparaging to see that, unfortunately, the project is not, willing to work with us and wait for the precise plan to come together. And they want to continue on with parcel by parcel development. So I think it's really important to remember, that it is important to start, but it's also important to start correctly. If any of those 6 plans that had been laid out before us were developed, we would have never had the opportunity to get Franklin Street back, which we now have that opportunity. So remember, sometimes you don't.
That's awesome because
you don't see. Remember, you don't always see, the best end result until a new opportunity presents itself. So I'll leave it at that. But hopefully there's a motion on the floor and we can discuss that motion.
I'm ready to make
Got
a
a
motion. Oh,
Go ahead.
I'll let you guys fight it out.
No,
we'll see how
Deborah,
close we
you
are,
first.
Dan.
Dan, run over to Deborah's house.
Rock, paper, scissors.
better audio.
My motion is to say that given the fact that these parcels are subject to the precise plan, that any forward motion by either the Planning Commission or the City Council take that into account and ensure that the requirements of the precise plan are met in the development.
I second that.
So, well, hold on. So I just want to be clear. So if you're making a motion that this project be held to the same, to the precise plans, the precise plan requirements and final, I don't know, how am I saying this? Sorry. Say it again. I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
Oh, let's see if I can say it. Or
Sorry.
Leslie, were you writing it down?
I put that this project should be subject to the precise plan. Any motion by the Planning Commission or City Council should ensure that the precise plan is followed.
Right. Rather than saying it should be held to the precise plan, the fact is it is subject to the precise plan, and any further recommendations or presentations to the Planning Commission or the City Council recognize that fact and hold it to the precise plan.
So can I ask a clarifying question? If something went forward prior to the precise plan being completed, would you be requesting that it conforms to what we have out there, deliverables we have available for review at that time? Or are you saying that it should wait?
That's what
I'm
I was getting at, because I'm like, if you're in the middle of it, how do
Yeah.
you hold it? What
Recommend that you wait for the precise plan to
Yeah.
be completed, basically.
and hold it to the same standard as all the rest of the 10 blocks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, do we have any questions or on the motion, or do we have a second on the motion?
Could we
Yeah.
have
I've got
clarification?
one
Oh, yeah.
follow-up. Sorry, Butch.
Butch, go ahead.
The only thing I wanted to say, could we have clarification on the language before we move the motion forward, please?
I agree. Thank you, Butch.
Can I
So
make,
I had one point to add, if I could, is that it's
Anna?
not only this development, but any development
Any development?
going forward.
Yeah, we shouldn't be specific to them. Good point, Dan.
so is
Sorry
the
about that.
motion to make the because we're, as DCTF, we would make a recommendation to City Council, right? So to clarify, is the motion to sort of in our letter that we would write as DCTF to then make the recommendation that we would like for, you know, any developments in this area defined in the precise plan to wait until the plan has been developed before they're allowed to move forward. Okay, so the motion
That's
is
how I understood
write
it.
a letter to ask for the planning commission and the city council to wait until our plan has been developed before they allow any developments to move forward.
I would do a word clarification again. Are we saying developed or adopted? Because between
Say adopted.
adopted, there is a 6 months.
Yeah, adopted. Good point.
And are we saying required versus, Jan, you said like to versus required?
Should.
I would say it's
I think the
subject
stronger
to.
the length, I think it's strong. I mean, it's going to be, Deborah, you're going to have to adjust the motion, but I think as strongly as we can word it, the better it's going to be. So putting in like or should or may is difficult. I think either we make the position that we would like it required or would make it the stronger.
Yeah, I second that.
I agree. I think we need to make sure that, you know, it's direct.
And Leslie, I know you got a lot writing there, but it's
Let me see. I'm gonna read.
it's like our
College
charters to create a precise plan. So I think any kind of development, there should be a requirement to wait for the precise plan, not something we like, or, you know, no offense there, but you know, that this is what we've been working on for 2 years, and, you know, developers should
Can I just
follow that
also,
precise plan.
Yeah, Rena, go
I
ahead.
just have another point of clarification. So when you say wait, right, I mean, projects can make progress on their plans, but they can't really then be evaluated, but people can kind of at their own risk, develop plans. You know, is that something you're discouraging? Or, you know, that's just, the reason why I say that is that this particular recommendation is different than what, like, was how El Camino was dealt with, the specific plan for El Camino, where sort of the council had, you know, given feedback that really until a certain point in the precise plan process, which I think, Leslie, correct me if I'm wrong, was the development of the land use plan,
That's
right?
correct.
So, you know, everyone was kind of put on, given a heads up about that. But now that the specific plan is almost near completion, the draft plan has been out. We do have applications that have been submitted to the city for the El Camino Real specific plan process. So I just want to throw that out there so that you understand, and I'm not even trying to influence your perspective, but that, you know, projects may, you know, if they were to move forward before the precise plan was adopted, then clearly you can't have standards. But if a project was applied for and moved through the process and then was waiting for their plan's adoption, that's another nuance that I just wanted you guys to shed light on if you have an opinion about that.
So is this just staff time to review the application, or are you talking about, you know, I mean, what are the formal, is it a deemed complete stamp? Is it, you know, certain stages in the review? How much work are you doing ahead of adoption of the plan? And are
Yeah,
there?
it is a fair amount of not just staff work, but, you know, a proposal might do something like environmental clearance, right? For something that may or may not be what the precise plan ultimately, you know, gets adopted to be, but that is sort of how they're proceeding, right? And moving in their parallel track. So it could be that a project doesn't go in front of, and Andrew, I know you turned on your camera, so I'm sorry to be confusing things. I was just having a hard time digesting like where, like when this recommendation is put out from this group, if they have given us all enough clarity on what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm glad that you said recommendation too, just to reiterate. I mean, this is ultimately council's the one that can give us direction. There is a legal moratorium process, but I think there's a very high bar to do that. And there really have to be some restrictions. And then as Rena mentioned earlier, with some of the state enabled things, that could be challenging here too. Although we would, under the state law, it would be the current general plan that we would be looking at. And at least this project on Monroe, they're asking for a general plan change. So that really gives us more leverage. But what the council did before on El Camino was they just said, you know, if you bring a project forward to the council ahead of the land use plan being developed, we will look at it unfavorably. And that was as far as it went, right? I mean, and there was nothing in there that would stop staff from working on the project. We kind of have an obligation to do that. If they filed an application, you know, we're sort of, you know, they have a legal right to file an application, and we have an legal obligation to process it. So those are kind of outside of what you might do in terms of a recommendation. But, you know, I think you can certainly communicate however you like. I think, you know, as you're developing your own way of framing it, that's fine, to the council, that you think that it's important that projects be, you know, that the plan be allowed to go forward, and the plan and the projects be reviewed consistent with what the plan says.
So do you want me to go read what I think? Let me read the recommendation as I think you guys are intending it to be. So any development within the precise plan boundary be required to wait until the plan has been adopted before being brought before the Planning Commission or City Council for an action. Does that sound? See lots of nodding heads.
Yes.
I just have one quick question. Can we make these recommendations with like SB 35 and other state legislations? Like, I'm just trying to even understand, like, if this this recommendation stands valid of those things.
So the way it's framed is very broad, right? And I think your intent is like a new development project, not like if an existing business needs a use permit or
Right.
something like that. And so really the key is a general plan amendment. As you mentioned, you know, there are state legislation things in place that if someone's trying to develop according to the current general plan, they can go through a discretionary process, or they can kind of, if they meet certain criteria, bypass it sometimes too, right? So, but I think your intent is, you know, like that this project, you know, is a change in the general plan. I think that's your primary intent, is to address those kinds of bigger redevelopment projects, and not every little permit that might be happening within the precise plan area.
Absolutely, Andrew. So if you know, if it conforms to the current general plan, then there's not much that can be done. But if they need a general plan amendment and a change to their zoning, that's where the city has the ability to say yes or no at that point.
Should that be written into what we're saying?
Good question.
I can.
In other
yeah,
words,
hold
no
on.
zoning change
You know,
until.
you know, to yeah, you
Map
can put that in there.
changing
It
is
kind
fine.
of, it goes a little bit without saying, but if
Yeah.
you want
I mean, I could add it.
I mean, I do
I
have to
could-
say, by adding that statement in, you imply that you want projects to build in conformance to the current general plan.
Which we don't want
And I
either.
don't think you
No.
really want to do that. So maybe you just exclude that.
Just
But
leave that out?
that is implied. That is
It's implied.
a true statement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the precise plan is going to be more in line with what they're proposing. It's just where it falls in that spectrum, I think, is the concern, right? Because it sets a precedent for the rest of future applications to then follow the precise plan or point to one that went outside those boundaries and say, well, now you gave specific rights outside of the specific plan to one, you have to give me the same rights. It just sets a bad precedent, I think. And that's the concern, is to make sure that all of the projects, to Dan's point, are not developed parcel by parcel, but they're developed within this overlay that we're all spending all this time and energy on. So I think keeping it broad is good.
Okay.
Do you want to read it one more time?
Yeah, I'm going to read it one
second?
more. Yeah. So the motion on the floor, any new development within the precise plan boundary be required to wait until the plan has been adopted before being brought before the Planning Commission or City Council for an action.
Downtown precise plan boundary.
Downtown precise, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I ask a
Specific.
question, Leslie? Because I just
Uh-huh.
don't want us to get caught in nuance. It's not clear that, seems like the request is that these bodies don't act. I guess staff has to do stuff on those agendas, and so you control those things, but I don't know if that puts you on the wrong side. Maybe Andrew knows specifically of, the requirement that you are sort of doing the work of the city. So, perhaps the request is to the council and to the planning commission to not act on these if they were to come forward, as opposed to putting it on staff, because they're the bodies with discretion.
Right, correct. Like Andrew said, we have an obligation to process the application once filed. But yes, this would be your request to the Planning Commission and city, really to the City Council.
And just to take that one step further, because I don't think, to put out a legal, like a moratorium, we've always debated whether that's even legal. So it might be to, that the council or planning commission act unfavorably, or, because I don't think we can tell them not to act. But maybe that you're saying that you wouldn't want a favorable outcome for projects that would, be presented in advance of the precise plan process.
Yeah, we're not asking for that.
The one way to frame it would be perhaps to say that they not approve projects
Yeah.
prior to.
Oh, okay.
There we go. That's a good idea.
Okay.
I mean, I hate
Okay.
to like give you words,
I
but
was thinking
Right.
the same thing.
I think
Yep.
that's, I mean,
You're just interpreting, Andrew. That wasn't.
just reflecting back what I thought you were saying.
thank you.
We rely on staff for your guidance.
Should we,
All right.
should we throw a penny
One more
in the
time.
reflection pond?
One more time. Okay. Motion on the floor. Any new development within the downtown precise plan boundary be required to wait until the plan has been adopted before being approved by the Planning Commission or City Council. Does that sound right?
Do we have any more discussion on the motion?
Well, I believe Deborah would have to get
Would I
rid
have
of
to
the first
resubmit
motion
that?
and resubmit it. Yeah, so the first motion has to be voted down because it's different language, if
Got it.
I'm not mistaken. And then the second motion with this new language would have to be introduced.
Can I just move what?
Or can I just
Leslie
withdraw
said?
the motion that I made initially?
Or we can just do an alternate.
It depends upon if it was seconded or not.
I don't think it ever got a second.
I don't
And
think
you
it
can
was.
withdraw, you should be able to withdraw it if it had not been seconded.
Okay, then I withdraw it.
Okay. Matt, did you have something before we continue on, or no? You're good?
No,
Okay.
just process.
Okay, perfect. So now somebody needs to make a new motion since the original motion was withdrawn.
Can I
move
make a motion
Leslie-
just to have Leslie say it? Because there's no way I'm going to be able to.
I second that.
There we go. So you second the fact that I don't talk.
So can I resubmit the motion that Leslie recorded?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then I so move.
Would you please read the motion again?
Yes.
One more time.
Okay, one more time. So the new motion now is, any new development within the downtown precise plan boundary be required to wait until the plan has been adopted before being approved by the Planning Commission or City Council.
Is that your motion, Deborah?
Yes,
Okay.
that's a motion.
Do we have a second?
No, can I make
Second.
just one?
Oh,
We still have discussion.
So when I listen to it, it's like we're giving the sort of action to the actual like motion. So I think it should be led with like, we are requesting or recommending that the Planning Commission and City Council wait to approve any planning projects that come before them until the downtown precise plan is approved. So then it's like, we know who the acting body is like immediately, and it's leading with that.
Stronger.
Right, it's the teacher professor in me like wanting to.
That's great.
Are you in the communication department by chance?
Is that your friendly amendment?
Okay. So what was that, Leslie?
Would that be your friend?
Leslie, you just went on mute.
I accidentally muted you. I meant to mute myself. Sorry, Leslie.
You were doing it to me.
Okay. So Chan, would that be your friendly amendment to reverse the language?
Yes, my friendly amendment to rephrase it so it's more clear that it's the Planning Commission and the City Council that has the authority to sort of not approve these proposals.
Okay, so I'm going to read one more time. So the DCTF requests that the Planning Commission or City Council not approve any new development within the downtown precise plan boundary, and that it wait until the plan has been adopted.
So who submitted it originally?
Deborah submitted it originally.
So Deborah has to approve the change in her original motion.
So I accept the friendly amendment. That's the right thing to say, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So then do we have a second?
Any other discussion?
Second.
So I have a second from Dan.
All right. All in favor of approving Deborah's motion, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. The ayes have it.
All right, thank
everybody.
you.
All right, we'll move on to our last item on the agenda today. It is item number 5, review of the
we have 2 more items.
We have 2 more items?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. 2 more items. See, sorry, I'm trying to speed this along too fast, I guess. Review of the comments made by the Downtown Community Task Force on the concept board at special meeting held on February 3rd, 2021.
I second.
No, I think it's discussion. So was there, I think they came out, Leslie, 2 days ago?
So they were attached to the agenda. And then I also sent
Like a link, right?
a link to the concept board.
So I think,
You want me to bring them up on the screen?
yeah, that might be helpful just to run through it. Thank you. You're
Leslie, the only thing that seemed was missing was we talked about all the heights for the eastern or western side of the precise plan area, and those didn't seem to be captured in that. I could be wrong, but when I looked, I didn't see it. It was like 2/3 of the area had sort of max heights.
Sorry, almost got it here. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Could be a little bigger or
Bigger?
wider.
Okay. See if I can, let's do that. Okay, why did my screen share stop? Can you guys see that? Is that better?
Yes.
Zoom
So
in a little more.
tried to capture everybody's comments, so I apologize if I did not capture a specific comment, but hopefully I was trying to type as fast as I possibly could.
So I heard Rob, you said something about height
Well, it was more in the
on the concept board.
concept board that it didn't seem like it had our completion of the heights, you know, through the whole precise plan area.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of clarification questions, if I could.
Absolutely, Butch, go ahead.
Okay, I think I have 3 of them or so. The first one is on the first page about Franklin Street. I think it's the third line. It says Franklin Street primarily pedestrian. If we could just clarify the primarily, there's been a lot of discussion specifically about should it be closed for pedestrian and then open to traffic, or open to traffic and closed for pedestrian. So my recommendation would be Franklin Street should possibly focus on pedestrian, something to just, so there isn't some confusion later down. I think what the conversation was, and correct me if I'm wrong, was definitely pedestrian on the sidewalk, so wider sidewalks, and then the street itself would be for vehicles and then closed as needed. And I know we have that noted on the 3rd point. I just want to make sure that it's understood that we don't get into this discussion later on about totally closing it down through the downtown. So that
I agree with that.
Wasn't there a comment later in this document about having something like targeted parking?
Yes.
On the street, and that it's not clear how to consolidate those two.
I think it's teaser parking.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I couldn't
Yeah, no
remember that
problem.
term.
Targeted parking. No, it's good. Teaser parking.
So,
so I guess to Butch's point, I think, Butch, would it be okay if we, have the intent to have those, I guess in my mind, I was thinking like Santana Row didn't plan ahead, right? But they end up closing it down manually all the time now for weekends and stuff. But to actually implement those automatic bollards to be able to just close it down, whatever the set parameter is, if it's Thursday through Sunday or whatever. How like in granular are you looking to get?
I think when we were talking with, I believe with WRT during that process, there was a discussion about because of the length of Franklin Street, once it's completed, if you do not have vehicular traffic that's able to go down Franklin Street, retail businesses could suffer. So that idea of being that it is a street, it is a wide street that can be closed for arts events or festivals or farmers markets, but it wasn't specifically designed to be closed all the time for pedestrians and occasionally open for vehicles.
Got it.
That was
oh, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
So I just wanted to make sure we were cognizant of the needs of the retail that'll be along those blocks, and the idea of I have to park on the corner of Lafayette and Homestead and then walk all the way up to a retail spot, which could be Monroe and pick a street. So just wanted clarification on that for future.
So should we say something, Butch, like the street should be open to traffic? I'm just trying to think how we can.
I would just say, like, when when we plan these streets, because like how a street's going to be used is going to be very different in like 10, 20 years. But just if we put the word like flexibility to be closed for events.
Thank you.
Or pedestrian friendly, like I think Butch said.
Yeah,
Or pedestrian focused.
I think pedestrian focused is generally like when you have more street furniture and more street trees, and they're wider, the sidewalks are wider as compared to streets which are not pedestrian focused, and they end up with like 8 feet, 6 feet sidewalks.
So
Yeah,
the language you guys pick, I'll let you go there. My second comment is on page 2. We talked about the trolley system. We talk about their Main Street, actually that would be Franklin Street coming through the university. So we have discussed options with SCU to provide trolley service down Main Street. And I think it should be Franklin Street.
And just another terminology clarification, usually in urban design language, Main Street is just noun to define the main retail street. And in our case, the main retail street happens to be Franklin.
Yeah.
That's the proper noun.
Yeah.
And we also have a Main Street.
Yeah, since we have a Main Street that runs through, it could be very confusing.
So just say
parentheses.
the main street or the principal throughway or something like that.
Just the Franklin Street.
Yeah.
And I'm
Or you could
just-
Min?
Yeah.
Moving along, I think I have one more. When we were talking about balconies, and again, this is clarification, I'm not advocating for it, but we had talked about, I think it's the next page, down towards the bottom. There it is. We talked about hotels can have small balconies. We had also brought up the discussion, would we allow commercial businesses along with hotels to put any balconies out, or limiting it, no balconies for residential. So I didn't know if we had clarified that or not.
No, it's a good point, though. I don't remember us if we talked, or maybe I just missed it, so I apologize if I did. I think we could add another bullet point and talk about the retail balconies and have a quick discussion if that's something we want to limit. I mean, outdoor space, I mean, outdoor rooftop, like if there was a bar that opened up or some kind of nightlife or something that opened up, is that what you're thinking?
Well, I'm
Or-
thinking that, or I'm thinking, I don't know, some company comes in and wants to have it for their own offices or whatever. And then the second part of that too is if we had a hotel build on Franklin Street, would we not allow them to have balconies? Or if a commercial property decided to build on Franklin Street, would we not have balconies? I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm just asking for clarification purposes.
Does anybody have any comments on either of those 2 points on how we want to?
I feel like I just feel a little opposite on the residential balcony. So let's not repeat there, go back there. But like, like the step backs and the roof terraces, those should be used and programmed. They shouldn't stay as like dead roofs. And I don't know if they come in the balcony.
Like, do you?
I don't think so.
But like if we are proposing like a 20, 15 feet step back on Franklin Street, those are amazing places to have restaurants or look down upon.
Totally.
Like if I have my nail salon there, I'm waiting outside, like those are like great places to, and I just don't want any language to remove those uses from there.
I like your word on the terrace or roof, outdoor amenity space, like different heights. So maybe for the commercial use, we put in like commercial, commercial uses are permitted to have outdoor terraces and rooftop amenities, right? It's not really a balcony at that point, because a balcony, at least in my mind of definition, it's like a small private space for a single occupant or user, right? Versus like what I think we're talking about for the commercial is obviously it's available to more, anyone who's being a patron of the business or, works there if it's an office, right? So it's more of a multi-use at that point.
Right.
It's not really a balcony.
And then on the hotels, if you were to build a small European boutique hotel who may want a balconies coming out, what do we want? Do we want to say no because we have no balconies on streets, balconies limited to street side, back of house, no balconies on main streets. So if I were to build a boutique hotel or something of that nature and wanted that, I couldn't build on Franklin Street or any of the main streets, Homestead, Monroe, Benton.
Chair, can I comment on that?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Thank you.
So I think, I concur with, sorry, Atisha, but I concur with you on balconies for residences, that they tend to gather things. I don't think that's going to be the case with hotels. So I could see an exception there.
I agree. I think, yeah, people don't have enough stuff or they're not living in it, at least at this point.
So we'll.
And
So
usually hotels don't want balconies because of the liability. It's
That's true
just,
too.
it's opposite. Like they were the one who wouldn't want to give. The older, if you see older hotels would have balconies, the newer ones don't.
Yeah,
But
that's a good point.
you give them the option, but
I don't think we give, I don't think we take that option away from the hotel. If they want to pay for the liability, if they're bringing in a boutique hotel and want to do it, that's left up to them. So,
Yeah,
and if they don't
I think we
use
can
it,
make an exception.
yeah. So that bullet point says no balconies on Main Street, Franklin, Homestead, Monroe, and Benton.
But alleys are fine, right?
I
mean,
think, should that be no residential balconies on Main Street?
Yeah. So residential balconies.
And then maybe the one above it, should that also say residential balconies limited to side streets and back of house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for residential.
Or
uses.
alleys.
I see it. I see it.
Alleys in back of house.
Yeah, you got it. Those were my comments on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Butch. Appreciate you reading through it.
I had a question. So for example, a developer comes up with a fantastic design and we liked everything except for the fact that he has a few balconies. Is he allowed to make a variance of sort, an amendment to the plan? And if city council approves it, will it go through? So what you're saying no to that can be amended down the road if we like the design and he can control the clutter that we're concerned about?
I'm kind of more with you than saying no to balconies than to clutter control. That's my thing, because it just gives so much more design. Buildings with balconies look more less like, not like a big chunk, but there is more volume and interplay in them. But that's just my taste, and I would say clutter control should be more of a guideline than saying no balconies.
That's what I think as well.
Well, there's one option here is that, a railing height on a balcony is 42 inches. If you're going to allow a balcony on a residential or on a major street, you could say that it has to be obscured. Meaning,
Then it's not a balcony. Like,
well, no, you could sit outside. You're still outside, right? I mean, it's just that you don't look down. But I mean, the clutter. Go look at the Liberty Towers. You go see the clutter on that building.
I'm hard pressed. I think that they can obviously offer a ton of rooftop amenities and alternative options to get that outdoor space. That to add balconies is not really needed.
I think it's more likely than not. Some of the Rivermark, my friends live there, and they have a very small area in front of their house. You could barely sit there, right? So we don't sit there. He barbecues there. And we go.
Exactly. Just the thing is, like, those balconies are designed to collect clutter. It's like opposite. It's like those are designed to collect clutter because they're like they're under designed. If they were to accommodate, people will actually use them. And I can walk you through so many different categories of balconies in Santa Clara, and we can really see the ones which are narrower than 6 feet collect clutter, and the ones which are wider than 6 feet can actually accommodate 2 chairs, are maintained gardens, tiny gardens.
I'll take you up on that offer. I'll go with you.
Okay.
Wherever you want to go.
Yeah,
because
Chair, in the interest of time, why don't you guys take that?
Yeah, no, I said I'll go with you. I think
there you go.
Or you can see 10 examples.
I think the issue is, Atisha, that we've just seen such poor design for balconies over time that most of them do end up with clutter, and we don't want that. And so it's easier to cut it off than it is to allow and hope for the best. Because if I hope for the best and I get what I feel that we're going to get by allowing them, then we're going to be really sad looking at everybody's crap for the rest of eternity. So I'd rather say no.
And my gut tells me that most developers get more value out of the square footage of their unit than they do for the outside.
I mean, Santana Row does not have balconies that looks over Santana Row.
A lot of those trends are changing post-COVID.
Rooftop amenities.
Yeah.
All right, is there any, does anyone else have any other additional comments?
I do.
Dan?
Yeah, so let's see, again, I had the note on Franklin Street pedestrian focus, so I think that's tackled. Butch, I'm going to take you to the side on this, but I wanted to be clear on your comment in the last meeting about the trolley going through Franklin. As it stands right now with the restrictions, I need to be clear on where you see the trolley turning to get to the train station. Or are you guys going to overcome the issue of the impediment that's blocking you from the train station? And we can talk offline on that, but I think it's critical for the, the route of the trolley.
I can give you the information I had received, which again is several years old. But when the university originally made the proposal about trolleys, and if you remember correctly, we also had some diagrams drawn up and we had some vehicles developed. The idea was that the university owns Franklin Street, the rest of Franklin Street down through to El Camino. There was not a discussion on whether or not that would open up across El Camino into the train station, or if you would come down Franklin Street and forgive me, I'm drawing a total blank. The last street.
I think it's Alviso.
No, it's after that.
Okay.
It's past that. It's past the hut.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
The other option was then taking a turn down that street, going out Benton to cross El Camino to the train station.
Which wouldn't be bad. We were talking about, a member of Rod and I were talking about it, but I don't want to burn our time tonight.
Right.
But
and
yeah,
again, the university has
options.
not made any decision on that. They've made the recommendation. They wouldn't mind having it go down our Franklin Street.
Okay. And last question on that is the speed going through the university, would it be like 15 or sub 20?
It would be something in that range, because when we did the test on the autonomous cars throughout campus for an entire quarter, the whole concept was it had to be a speed that was acceptable for students walking up and down the same paseos or walkways. So yes, it would most likely be in that 5, 10, 15 mile range, whatever is safe for students to also, pedestrians also to be around those trolleys.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then another issue was, the question that came up out of our group was bike lanes on Franklin. Now, I know we talked about them on Benton. Are we seeing no bike lanes on Franklin? And Rob, you might be on mute. I think I see you talking.
Well, I think we said that bikes can certainly go down there, but to create the intimacy, it's going to be at a slower pace, right? It's not a major artery. So I think that's what we kind of discussed. I don't know if I would put a bike lane down there, because I think you really, the quicker route is, I mean, people can go down there, but I think the quicker route's down Benton and Homestead. So
I think we're going to come to a time when no streets are designed without bike lanes very soon.
I agree.
A lot of state laws are going to be there. If you're putting in new streets, they can't be without bike lanes. It's just that the speed of the bike lanes will be controlled on pedestrian friendly streets. They will have to stop, and they'll be moving at a slower speed compared to the thoroughfares and creek trails. So
yeah. Okay. The other thing that I overlooked last meeting was streetlights. And specifically, we've got 12 of the original bases that are down the old part of Franklin. And I would like to make a motion for the group that we recast those bases, and then we have photographs. Our group, I think Donna researched this, or somebody else researched this, as far as what was topped on top of that originally. And I'd advocate for, again, that touch to be brought back, because again, that's like my neon sign thing I sent to you today. Unfortunately,
Dan, we would second that with the university, because we are restoring all of those streetlights to their original form on our end of Franklin Street.
Great.
So it'd be very appropriate to carry it from one end of Franklin all the way to the other. So we've already started that process on our side of campus. So I would agree with you. We need to do that.
And
okay, great.
Yeah, Butch and Dan, to your guys' point, there is one existing original street pole down in SVP's yard. It got removed for the Silicon Sage project, and it's been sitting there waiting for reinstallation at some point. But Manuel might be able to speak to it. But
that was the 260 post rebellion on reclaiming our downtown.
So it is still at the yard, so it might be something the city can start looking into on seeing how they can rehabilitate and potentially, replace the ones that we've lost over the years.
The other thing I had, and I don't want to gloss over it, any other questions on streetlights or?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Sidewalk widths. Did we said 12-foot minimum? The more we're reading about this, we're looking at 16 feet. I think that's going to be up to WRT based on our description. I think that question's for Leslie.
You could, let's recommend it and have WRT look at it.
Okay.
Dan, the
how
important thing
does the group feel about that?
Well, Dan, like when you say 12-foot minimum for a sidewalk, like we got planter strips and then an actual sidewalk. Like, so it's important to define the whole frontage, right? What are we talking about here? We might want to say, well, if you're going to encourage outdoor dining, it's got to be a minimum of X. If it's just a pedestrian pathway, is it 6 feet of concrete and a planter strip that makes up the 12 or 10 or whatever? So it's
building to street,
yeah,
I think.
Well, yeah,
no,
12 seems
the 12 feet is building to street. That's the minimum standard.
Minimum.
That's the minimum standard, and then you would either put trees in the tree grate if you need more pedestrian volume, or if it's on kind of one of the side streets, it's going to be, you can put planters. But I think on Franklin Street, what I remember from the concept board sections, they were very wide. They were like 20 feet wide.
20 feet, yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea is like we say minimum to define a minimum, but then you make as much as you need. And especially there hasn't been a traffic study to tell the amount of lanes.
So maybe we should put in to encourage a couple rows of outdoor dining, just put a little snippet in there that just says, I like 2 rows. And not to get on this, New York City, what I love is in the winter, they have the dining right next to the building and they do those vinyl covers, right? And that's the another benefit. Not that they can't do them out on the street, but yeah, have something in there, encourage 2 rows,
Yeah, Donna West from our group came up with a article on that. I'm going to pass that out to the group.
Okay.
And then the last thing I had, again, touches on the neon. I don't know if you guys all got that.
We had, I think there was some stuff in signage, Dan. Yeah, signage, neon signage, okay, 3-dimensional. So it's not just signage plastered on the side of the building, but it's actually
exactly.
What's
it's actually allowed to be that 3-dimensional.
Well, and I showed. Sorry, I got this echo. But I showed 2 cities. I showed Los Gatos, and then I showed the Wilson's original sign from Santa Clara. But we have examples from Mountain View, Palo Alto, And it's amazing how they're all the same height and they stick out about the same width. So there'd be a standardization, but then allow them to have their creativity at the same time.
What I love about it, Dan, is it just, I've seen signage done really poorly, you know, and I'm not going to refer to any developments in town, but, and I worked at Gap Inc. and we were all about signage, right? And we had all different standards depending on where you were, but especially in a mall, there were specific requirements to keep a consistency and a balance to it all. So yeah, I'm on board, but I do think that, you know, you can integrate. It doesn't have to be the flag type. Sometimes you can do signage still on the face, but it's more complex. I wouldn't say you want to encourage everybody to do neon, right? I mean, that's, you know, that's, I don't know, seems excessive, but.
Yeah, I don't want, I'm not advocating for every storefront having neon, but allowing.
So Dan, are you advocating that we put a bullet point here saying to set a standard for the neon signs then?
Yes.
Or just signage in general, right? I mean,
could be.
Because maybe if we ask for a good parameter from WRT, maybe they already have one, so we don't have to talk about it. Maybe provide good signage guidelines for activated 3-dimensional, you know, like downtown streetscape.
A lot of it's based on
Okay, so I want to caution.
Well,
just caution
we can
on
word
that,
it however we want. I'm just saying let's let them.
There's not a lot of precedent.
Here's the thing, you know, you see all that, you know, they used to paint on the building frontage, right? The old signage, and it has to do with the area above the storefront, right? The amount of wall that you have whether someone wants to paint something or put a neon sign or a flag on the corner, it's somewhere it's in that, right? Because if you don't leave enough, you're gonna have this sign that extends awkwardly. So there's got to be something, and I'm no signage expert, but I know when it's right and I know when it's wrong. So yeah, I would say they have to have a ton of experience. I would think Sergeant, you know.
Yeah, and
I think what we need to say is that we would encourage artful signage, and then show a lot of precedent images in the precise plan, what those artful signage looks like. So like include the neon sign, and we should just like kind of say, oh, you need to come with like, you know, any developer coming in, we are not taking a boring signage. It's part of our architectural review process. We need a cool signage, you know, something like that.
But maybe you also said the signage can't overlap like a window, or, you know, like you have to set some kind of, framework for it, right? Because you're going to get something schlocky, you know. I mean, you just so it's
I mean, I don't know this for certain, but I know back in the 20s, the variance between the signs as you walk down the streets were very small. So they, you know, they weren't gargantuan unless they were a theater, but they all varied, you know, maybe by a foot.
And the awnings a lot of times had, like that photo you sent, they had the name of the business on the actual awning, just on the little, you know, vertical part, not the slope.
I'd like to mention also, perhaps to give it a parameter when you're talking about signage, because I've seen some terrible neon signs out there too, you know, in some of these, in Santa Clara even. So by just saying neon, it gives them the free for all, like, hey, I like this, I'm going with it. Can we mention something along the lines of vintage quality, or something like what Atisha was saying? It has to be historic or artful or vintage. We just don't want the cheap neon that I see everywhere now.
Yeah, Costco neon.
It's bad. It's bad. Yeah.
I think maybe we put in there like to develop.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to spend too much time and get into the weeds right now, because I think we should be utilizing WRT and everybody to help us. You know, they have more experience than we do. I think we should just put in there, you know, help to develop guidelines for, you know, art and vintage, you know, signage.
Yeah.
You know. I think that's a good point.
Agreed.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Agreed. And I think that's all I had.
Can we write that in, Leslie? Like another bullet point is to develop an artful vintage signage guideline for the downtown precise plan. I think she's frozen. Uh-oh.
Late.
Uh-oh, she is frozen.
Yeah, Dan, can you repeat that?
COVID problems.
No, but to Anna's point, I agree 100%. There's horrible neon, you know, like in the windows and the, you know, and then now that you got the LED neon, it looks like garbage. So I think there has to be specificity in the guidelines. And then the other problem you got is, you know, you're telling a storefront owner that's trying to count, you know, dollars, hey, you got to put this $400 sign out there. You know, how do you mandate that versus to Rob's point, where you just, you know, paint something on the side of your building. So there's more to tackle, but I've got some ideas, and again, I'll send emails to you guys on that.
Thanks. We still have more time because WRT is going to present some stuff for us. This is just to give them a running start, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Rena, real quick, sorry, DCTF, hold your comments. Leslie is frozen, Rena. So what would you like us to do? Well, I don't know if she can hear us or anything, right?
Sorry. I keep on like turning my camera on and off, on and off. I just want it on. That's a bummer because Leslie's always my backup, so I don't know how to be her backup.
Oh, we lost the backup to the backup.
Let me see what I can do to bring her back in first. I
Okay.
think she's texting me.
Sorry.
My Zoom just crashed. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't.
So do we need to take a vote
Welcome
here?
to my world.
Have we advanced to an actual motion at this point?
Well, I think we have to add in the guidelines for the signage for them to help develop some guidelines for artistic and vintage. And then, are there any
Just
other?
one thing, we
sorry.
will talk about this at the next item, but that is definitely probably not scoped,
Okay.
right? So that's sign programs are programs and they cost money. So I just, you know, we can talk about that in the next item, but it's not
Okay.
just like a line item, like let's do a sign code. So there's a
Fine.
budget implication for it.
And we should at least get a cost, then we can talk about it in the next one. So that way we can understand what we want to ask for and what we don't.
Is it possible
And
that
just
we
to
ask?
mention on this item what Rena said, so there are signage programs that are part of the precise plan, which will say the wayfinding signage should come here, 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 and here. That is one level of design, and the second level of design is the aesthetics of it, which is a very big ask.
To do the what?
The aesthetics of it, like to write exact guidelines to define the aesthetics, because we don't want every business to have a neon sign. We want one or two of them, but then we want other kind of signage flexibility. So like that's like a full graphics design exercise for a branding company.
Yeah.
But are we asking for that, or are we asking for just setting a parameter that says we want signage that is vintage, artistic, or whatever? I mean,
Do we want all signages to be like that?
Well,
I like
we want-
Rob's idea where you have maybe a neon sign and then again the same width or area, so it's not all, you know, big, small, wide, plastic, you know, but you have the storefront owner has an option.
This gets
and I don't know if
down
you can
Dan,
supplement the neon or.
It has to more to do with form. Think about it from this perspective. It used to be masonry buildings, and so they tended to have less openings or parapets on Victorian style buildings, and there was plenty of room for signage back then. Now with modern construction and concrete and steel, you can have very thin horizontal elements on a building, right? And what's left, right? There's not a lot left. I mean, so you're in this kind of so I think it's more that you want to make sure that there's enough portion on the building for signage. It's connected. It's not just a sign, it's the building and the signage. It's the canvas for the sign.
facade.
So I don't, just sorry, for the sake of time, I don't want to get too
Yeah.
far into the weeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of going down that path. So I think what we should do
You
is,
know, maybe if I could just suggest, you know, you have some implementation actions that you want out of the precise plan, that this, you know, development of like a comprehensive sign program could be something that goes alongside or after something, some of the other implementation items that you guys want as
Yeah.
well.
And they could give us a proposal to do it.
I was going to suggest two things. One, we should add one, we should add a note that we want to an emphasis on creativity and, you know, and some vintage looks here and there throughout it, right? And so we're not having a whole thing, but an emphasis on those two items, and then also a proposal for creating a sign plan, just so we have the ability to choose from there. Or we can potentially craft some little guidelines later on if we decide we don't want them to provide a fully comprehensible plan.
I would suggest to have WRT give the broader guidelines that we need wayfinding and these are the kind of wayfinding, but to design those, we kind of do it later after the precise plan because of some of the timeline issues, because these things take a lot of time, like creating a branding plan is a 2-year exercise in its own.
Yeah, no, I think, yeah, so yeah, that's fine. All right, are there any, just for the sake of time, are there any additional comments? I want to move kind of past this one.
Chair Adam, one more question. When you're referring to signage, does it include any of the street signs like the Franklin Street, the Main Street, etc.?
Like the actual street signs?
Yes. Is that
was not what was, I mean, that's not what I intended when I wrote down the note or what was discussed. We can add something in if we want.
Okay.
But again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this because it's, I mean, it's important, but I think to Tisha's point, I think we look at potentially a branding comprehensive plan as a day 2 item. We have plenty of time to come up with it in the sense of before even the first development goes in. So I just don't want to get caught in the weeds.
I just don't want to overlook the actual signs in that neighborhood. It was brought up at several community meetings we've had in the past that folks would like it to have some kind of vintage or historic flavor to indicate the transition from the regular neighborhood to the actual downtown, some kind of uniformity along those lines. So I just didn't want it to be overlooked, and that's why I brought it up.
Okay.
Anna, that's a really good point. And I think that when we start talking about infrastructure and some of maybe the enhancements that you guys want for infrastructure, you should just bring it up again, because that kind of stuff costs more money and we want to make sure that the development's paying for it, and we delineated it out as something specific that we want to see happen.
Okay.
You know what might be good too, Anna, is if you can come up with some examples, you know, when we start talking about that infrastructure. So maybe we can put our own guidelines just for the street signs. You know,
okay.
The branding thing is going to be a much bigger project, but if maybe you have some good examples that we can cite for this, you know, the actual street signs, I think that'd be really helpful.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
And the old street signs, whatever those look like, I'm curious.
The what?
The original street signs.
Yeah, the original.
Right? I mean, that's a very easy place to start.
All right, are there any additional comments, or are we ready to take public comments?
I think this is something WRT is going to do, but there were a lot of comments that I made on the concept board directly, because I was also taking notes on concept board. So I'm sure, Leslie, they're going to read it. I have not compared it completely, this document, to that one.
And Leslie, just to confirm, you were able to marry the 2 concept boards, right?
WRT did that, but yes.
Perfect.
And so this Word document that you've created will go with the concept board.
Perfect.
But Leslie, I didn't see the heights for the back end of the buildings. Yeah.
So
is that correct, or am I crazy?
I'll have to go back and take a look. I don't have it open right now.
Yeah.
Do you have something specific that you can just email me?
Well, when I looked at it today, I didn't see the heights delineated on the second half. You know, we did that was the whole discussion of what's the heights marching towards Monroe. And I didn't see that.
You're talking about the Homestead side, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
No, all that whole side between Benton and Monroe, between Benton and, you know, it was the second phase of our discussion about heights.
Right.
We did
So
the first.
the west side.
Yes, the west
Basically.
side. Yeah.
So
and you see-
I'll double check to make sure that it's there.
Okay. Thank
Yeah. Either way, it's on Zoom.
Yes.
you. Yeah.
That's the beauty of doing this.
I'll screenshot it.
Recorded.
All right, so if there's no additional questions, we're going to open it up to public comment. If there's anyone in the public that would like to speak on this item specifically, please raise your hand. I'd like to ask that you keep your comments to 1 minute long. All right, I see a hand, LaDonna.
You can unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hi, it's actually Gabby. I've brought this up in discussions. The word trolley to me just makes me feel like you're going to put some tracks in the ground or some wires up in the air, and clearly that's not true. So if it's going to be some type of autonomous vehicle, if that's the intent, I don't know your whole concept, but should trolley truly be the word you use?
That's why I put it in parentheses just as a placeholder, but you are correct. There's no intent to put tracks or power lines up to run it. It was just as kind of a placeholder until the vision could be met, but the intent was to kind of reconstruct what was once there in a more modern form factor, and something that would be less costly to install and maintain.
Yeah, right. I mean, any type of tracks or wires would be going so far backward in time. I mean, you definitely are trying to recreate downtown, but I don't know if you want to recreate cable cars and trolleys necessarily. So it's, I was just thinking autonomous shuttle system. It has a great acronym, but anyway, you guys are doing a great job. I appreciate your work. The word trolley to me just stands out. It just jumps off for me. So that's it.
And we can maybe come up with a different, no track.
Because I mean, the intent is to have maybe something autonomous, or I mean, San Diego, I believe they have gas powered. I mean, they have electric vehicles, and I mentioned there's a city in France that literally does have an autonomous that takes you from the cruise line to the downtown area, and it just hums along without a driver. It's pretty cool, and it's probably seats about 10 people, I want to say.
Can you send that? Is there?
I sent a picture. I can get the town. I'll remember where we stopped, and I can give you the information so we can reach that town, because it was a pretty cool little system.
Yeah, sounds cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Is there any additional members of the public that would like to comment on this item? Please raise your hand. I don't see any additional hands up. Oh, there you go. It looks like Donna has a comment.
Donna, you can go ahead and unmute and speak.
Thank you, Leslie. I wrote it in chat, and I think Donna addressed this. I only heard half of it because I got up to my desk. But we have pictures of the old street signs in our group, so for you to look at the old black and white street signs. I think that's a great way to bring back the history, even in the near modern downtown. So, like I think on the draft it too, but we do have those pictures if you want. Thanks.
Thank you, Donna. I think we caught it, which was Rod. Reclaim Downtown has pictures of the old black and white street signs that were originally there. So maybe we could get those and then send that off with, with the final precise plan in those guidelines that we're talking about developing for the street signs. So I don't see any more hands. Is there a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of closing public comment on this item, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Public comment is closed. Is there any additional discussion on amendments to these notes before we send them to WRT? Is there a motion to send these to WRT?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of sending the comments with the notes and revisions we made this evening to WRT, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. We can send this with the concept board off to WRT. If there are any questions, Leslie, I'm sure they'll reach out to us, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And if we need, if need be, I'm just thinking, I know, you know, we'll have to probably get a timeline from them on when they'd be prepared to kind of present their updated, you know, plan and, you know, working off what they had done already. But if there's a need potentially for a very short special meeting just to go over question and answers, can we set one up?
That is possible, yes.
Perfect.
Chair,
Yes.
could we have a copy with all the additions sent to the committee?
That's a
The
great
new version?
Yes, I will do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe Leslie, if they can PDF the concept board and send it out as a PDF,
okay,
like the whole thing, or even just if it has to come in sections, that's fine. But that way it's documented, we can have it to kind of stew on it some more. That'd be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, moving on to now our last item of the agenda, which is item number 6, which is discussion on budget and scope of the work for the Downtown Precise Plan. So I'm sure Leslie's got something to pull up here.
So I'm gonna pull up for you the slide that I used the last time we spoke about this in December. Share my screen. Why is it all messed up? Come on.
Oh, I got my lights coming on. Darn automatic controls.
Whoa. You guys all see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So Adam, did you have something you wanted to start on this one?
So yeah, I can kind of walk through. So we obviously have developed a precise plan document based on the notes. I mean, I'm not sure if WRT is going to come back with a potential change order based on the notes that we're giving them, or I'm hoping that by providing those notes and having these conversations on the site has actually streamlined the process and, you know, limited the potential impact for, you know, having their team show up to multiple meetings and listen to us discussing it live. Would that be a fair statement? And that we're probably still be able to maintain that 81,260 to get to our final plan?
I think so.
Okay, so maybe we can confirm that when we send these comments off. And then you have community engagement and public hearings. What is that? What leftover does that entail?
So we have the second round of community engagement, which is on placemaking and urban design. So that would be coming after we solidify the preferred land use plan. They have their scope to go back out into the community, probably not in person, but virtually. And they want to have a discussion with the task force on what that outreach should look like, whether it's a webinar or it's a survey or it's some combination of something, but to be determined. But they are scoped for that second round of community engagement.
Is this a requirement? Do we have to do this?
They're scoped to do it. There's nothing that's requiring us to do it. We sort of have it out there that we are going to do it.
But it's not a requirement to complete.
Not a requirement, no.
Not a requirement. So we could potentially pull that funding for something else.
Right. And some of that money is going towards the public hearing, so before the Planning Commission and City Council with the final document.
Okay. And then environmental review, CEQA, we don't really have much option there.
No.
We're kind of stuck.
Yes.
But that is to complete the entire analysis for the entire 10 blocks. Is that correct?
That is correct.
10 blocks.
And
Now that does not, now that would include the cost to get the CEQA documents prepared for the easement purchase as well, correct?
Yes, that can be included in the document. I know that item that management staff is still researching on what the best path forward is for CEQA.
Okay, so that includes that. Now an EIR is not going to be completed?
No, an EIR is going to be completed. It's a programmatic EIR.
And is that built into that CEQA cost?
That is the CEQA, yes.
Oh, got it, EIR and CEQA. I thought they were two different things.
No, the EIR is what we're preparing to comply with CEQA.
Got it. Thank you for the clarification. And then optional tasks not greenlit. So what is included in that? Sorry.
No, it's okay.
I know you sent it, but I don't remember it. I can't remember.
I think, let me open it up because I can't remember off to the top of my head.
I don't feel so bad now.
I'm drawing a big.
I swear I read the document 3.5 months ago before the holidays.
Is that the summer pop-up events, the ground floor retail stuff? Is that what you're
Those,
referring
yes,
to?
those are included.
Developer RFQ.
Yes, that is included. You see, you guys know.
Not at the pop-up and developer review. Okay.
Yeah.
So can I just ask, these outstanding key tasks not started, those don't all add up to the 356.
You are right.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are key tasks, so not all of the tasks. These are the big ticket items that have not been started, because we have a number of things that are in progress right now.
So these are the items that have not started.
Right, not started. So, like we're working on the land use plan. They towards some of that, but it's not completed, so they'll finish billing towards it.
So there's about $60,000 difference from my, quick math here.
Now you got me doing the math, Deborah. 56, 264, 82,000.
Oh, 82,000.
82,809.
So I just want to understand, Mr. Chair, you mentioned maybe, not doing the full community engagement and allocating that to something else. I don't think we need to do that because it seems like we have a surplus.
There is not a surplus.
Yeah, I do question removing it, because both from the legal aspects and also getting the whole community involved. Like right now, we see about 30 people involved in DCTF meetings. But when we did the online engagement, we had over 500 people respond. So it's kind of part of like going out to people beyond us, beyond people who can spend 4 hours doing DCTFs every month. So I just feel like it is important, and it's our due diligence to take this beyond this process, like Zoom meeting.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Atisha, if it's worth $20,000 or there's other means and methods to get the community engagement completed. With the budget being as tight as it is and the city running a deficit, I think it would be irresponsible not to at least question what we have left and the abilities before. It's going to be me going in front of council asking for more money potentially. So I want to make sure that every avenue to use the funding properly has been, analyzed and researched before I say, by the way, can you give me more? I'm going to be Oliver Twist. So.
The not green lighted items, you were all correct. It's the summer event pop-ups, the ground floor retail guidance document, and the developer RFP.
Ground floor retail and what? I'm sorry.
Preparation of the developer RFP. So there are just 3 items.
Retail and developer RFP. And is it normal that the like a consultant would complete the RFP versus the city?
It would be supporting us, so doing any like design work or for putting out the document. We put out a whole document with, you know, what we're looking for a developer to submit. So providing guidance on that, they would help us develop those guidelines and any potential grant.
Yeah, Leslie, I'll just, this is Manuel and Sherry. I'll just add, this is not something we typically do, so we definitely do need consultant support.
Okay.
And just to add to that, Manuel, like, and this is something because I have represented a lot of agencies to do P3s. We will need a significant support from economic consultants who would run a parallel pro forma for us. And that's like a way bigger number. That does not fit into 8,000. That's a $50,000, $60,000 cost if we really want to get the best community benefit package and be at the negotiation table. We will need a legal team and economic consultant on top of a design consultant.
Okay. I mean, but that's not in the budget.
But that's not part of the precise plan, but that usually what happens is the developer pays it later. It's part of the RFP process. You hire these consultants and it gets paid as part of the negotiation. I have worked on a lot of them and it's a full process I can present at another DCTF.
Yeah, okay.
It should not be part of the precise plan budget, at least for now.
Okay.
The optional tasks are within the total budget.
Yeah.
We just have not greenlit those 3. So we haven't exercised our option to include those.
Okay. And then the 14,920 is not allocated towards anything. It's just literally a contingency slip.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So now
anything.
All right. So now I just want to talk about, and I want everybody to bring up the items that we know we potentially might need to allocate, you know, to get more funding for. So it would be, I mean, the one that I would say is CEQA for the Franklin Street easement ahead of the precise plan. And then we talked about tonight, the signage. And all I want to do is get a list so we can get some proposals and then we can actually make a informed decision. But without actually understanding the cost, it's really hard to pick and choose what we want to do and what direction we potentially want to go. So we talked about a signage branding guideline, signage and branding guidelines.
And should this list add up to the 356,000?
No, this list is all the stuff that we don't have included in this precise plan now that we potentially.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I wanted to make sure we all understood exactly what we have left and what was required and what we might be able to, you know, rob Peter to pay Paul for a better lack of terms, and then figure out, okay, now what is our wish list? I'm going to call it that. So we have like form-based code, right? To Atisha's point, she just mentioned, what do you call it, Atisha, for like additional financial consultant for community benefits? What do you call that?
We'll just need an economic consultant to consult on the RFP process. We'll just need him as part of the deal-making process. And they're called economic consultants for representing the public agency in a P3.
We got Manuel.
Yeah.
I've seen him in action. He doesn't want to get on. He's great.
I do want to note, just for clarification, that not on that, that a P3 has a very specific definition. This might not necessarily be a P3. And that would be part of the process that we have to go through. So I just wanted to note that for the task force and the audience.
What's P3?
Public-private partnership.
Wow. And so what would that entail?
I think the process we would go through for the city property probably requires a full different discussion on its own. The public-private partnership has certain elements to it. You could also just go through a full, just lease the property, and you wouldn't necessarily define it as a P3. Also, I think there's different options, and we'll have to develop what those options are once we start moving forward with it.
Yeah. But Adam, I think that scope of work is beyond precise plan.
Okay. Are there other items that the task force would like to potentially have included, from what, other than what we discussed? So CEQA for the street ahead of the precise plan CEQA, signage, branding, form-based code. What about rezoning or updating the zoning for downtown properties? Is that something, we don't have that included now, right, Leslie?
No, we don't.
And so that would be different than form-based code as well, correct? Or it would be,
It'd
yes.
probably be cheaper, yes.
Shaking. Well, I mean, yeah, so I think, okay. So updating, I'm gonna say updating zoning code.
And Leslie,
The chair, I got a question.
Sorry, Dad. Is that something staff updates, or we need a consultant to do it? The zoning code update.
That's probably something staff could do. We'd just be utilizing the standards from the specific plan or the precise plan. So, you know,
okay. Dan?
Okay, there we go. I got my echo. A question, I guess, for everyone is the retail expert a part of this, or would that be an additional cost?
retail expert for what?
Just to re-examine post-COVID what makes sense and what doesn't.
That would be an extra cost.
So even though you have a ground floor retail in that 20 grand?
Maybe it could take the place of that. I guess what I'm saying is it's not in the current scope.
So we do have a retail access on WRT though, don't we? Doesn't that person evaluate, what we come forward with?
Right, yes, but evaluating it for post-COVID is not something that is in the.
Let me rephrase it. So in other words, we come forward with Washington Street and, we're going to put retail here and there. They're going to evaluate it at face value or.
Yeah. And I mean, I would have to ask them, but likely it would be pre-COVID.
Well, they couldn't be pre-COVID. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, retail as we know it is drastically changed. I mean, but yes, I mean, I would think that it might be slightly different, but maybe we could reallocate some of those costs and then some of the contingency costs, Dan. I mean, I wouldn't expect it to be that drastically different.
Leslie,
and I made the question more complex. So in other words, we have access to somebody with retail, and that's part of the scope right now.
Yeah, Leslie, David Greensfelder, he did work already on the precise plan as, a sub, and he's going to be building off the work that he did, which I don't think that's pre-COVID, post-COVID. It's more if the plan changes substantially in people's realization of what they want post-COVID, there's obviously some work that he's building off of. So I don't think it's as much as pre-COVID, post-COVID, as much as is he going to have to reset the work he's already contributed to moving, advancing.
Because there's recommendations on where retail should go and how much retail. I don't know that, given today, maybe the recommendation would be a lot less retail. So yeah, that's not.
Want to be careful what we ask for. Like right now today, it's pretty bleak. But in 10 years from now, it might be, again, very different, right? So I think.
Well, and that plays to the, I think it came up last meeting that we have flexibility with the storefronts.
Yeah, that's really important to have.
Adaptability.
All right, getting back to the budget, are there any additional items? And I'll run through them again once we kind of see if we can solve it, consolidate, but basically we want to ask for proposals for each of these and then be able to then basically shop them and then go in front of council and potentially ask for more funds if need be.
The only thing I thought of, Adam, just clarifying the signage, because we've talked about, there's wayfinding, there's building signage. Because if they're going to give us a proposal of what, we need to be a little clear, I think, on what we're asking.
So I think we should do a signage and brand guidelines and a wayfinding and street signage, right? Maybe
building or business. I think you need to be a little clearer, but yeah.
I think if you're saying like urban design guidelines, the basic signage on buildings are usually part of it. Like, is it like something off the building? And I think they haven't gotten into that granular level of placemaking because that's where they wanted to go to the community.
Yeah.
That's what my understanding is. But the actual design, like the font size, the color, you know, those are not part of the scope. But like, yes, this at this height, you know, these are the different ways you can have signage, and they'll give for few options because you don't just want one kind of signage throughout.
Yeah.
That's part of like the urban design guidelines, but I don't think so beyond that is anything they are scoped for.
So that sounds good. Sounds like
that's usually like part of any urban design guidelines. You'll do some level of signage.
Okay. So just define what you're asking a little bit more.
Yeah.
Beyond.
Yeah, no, I think signage for buildings and storefronts, and then wayfinding and branding.
There you go.
2 separate items.
There you go.
Because they probably have 2 separate levels of parameters and details. So, no, that's a good clarification.
Chair?
Yes, sir.
Do we need, I don't know if it's appropriate or not, do we need anything about the discussion we had on Lafayette Street about traffic flow, anything like that, or is that outside this scope?
We can ask for cost for a traffic diet, right?
I think the Chair Adam, I think where we left off with the engineer was they had to, we would have to request a survey, a whole new analysis for a diet. So
and that's what we're getting at is, do we want to ask for a cost for that, right? Because it's not in the current budget.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important. I mean, we spent a lot of time, and I think we all agree, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that is going to be a major contributor and feeder to the downtown. And if it's not fixed, it potentially can limit the success of the actual development.
And it's important to do it now because it's part of the EI. It's bordering, you know, I mean, that's part of the EIR traffic flow and everything. So it's like, you know, now's probably the time.
Mr. Chair, if I may, for a second. This is Manuel.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah,
Manuel.
Leslie, if that's going to go in the request, I would suggest that we also ask for the additional time required on the schedule. Not as concerned for the work itself and the analysis. I think that can fit within the existing schedule, but for the additional outreach that's going to be required and extending out the outreach as part of that process. So it's not just a funding item, but also a scheduled item that should be included as part of that discussion, because that changes the area that we are outreaching to.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I was just thinking, to Butch's point earlier tonight, it's not just Lafayette, it's also probably Monroe. So it's all the feeder streets coming in that we really should do, which is, I know everybody's probably thinking that's a big task, but I think it is important.
Isn't that part of ask? Sorry,
Reina.
Oh no, I was just going to ask, because some of these things seem like there's the downtown precise plan, and then there's implementation of the downtown precise plan, and getting the plan across the finish line with the level of specificity and all these things already on the table. And then there's also like things like a comprehensive sign program, things like working through the RFP and, you know, a community benefits package for that. It's, you know, and so I just didn't know if it might be helpful to split out like what these are as you guys see them, as what does it take to get the downtown precise plan over the finish line versus building out the plan and all the things that come with it, that some of it is implementation actions.
I agree with that.
And I agree with that, Rena. I think, but one of the things that I'd strongly caution us on is if we do a precise plan and put it on a shelf and we don't think about all the other items that are going to affect it, it'll end up like the 6 or 7 plans before us. That's my big concern. And so I think which will be really helpful is if staff, even though we're asking for pricing and and to Manuel's point, also schedule impacts potentially, right? It might limit or guide us in the choices we make, but also seeing what can be broken out separately and not, so we can keep moving with the precise plan, but I still feel it's worth going to council and saying, hey, like for a traffic diet, we really do need to fix the streets coming in and out to make it successful. And even though it might be able to be done as a separate action, I'm still willing to ask to make sure that the work and the money that the 700,000 we've thrown at this now is actually going to result in a positive change and development, right? I don't want to just spend $700,000 and there it goes, and everybody looks at it and goes, "You guys can't get enough traffic in and out of this place to make it worth it." So that's where I'm concerned. But you guys bring up a good point. So it'd be good to know what we can break out separately as an alternate, parallel activity that's not beholden on the actual conclusion of the precise plan.
Yep.
Can I ask one more clarifying question?
Absolutely.
About placemaking. Is all of the placemaking, visioning, or proposal work included in what WRT has quoted?
Yes, that is
Okay.
the step after the land use plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, and a lot of what I feel like some of the urban design guidelines that we are already talking about, they will come in that piece.
I mean, I think they're going to start firing on all cylinders, right, with the design.
Yeah.
They're ready to go. So it's going to get exciting real soon.
I think it's really important to set the density to start getting to that grain, and that's what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And once we set the density, I think we can kick off the CEQA process in parallel.
Yes, you are correct.
Are there any other items we would like to ask to get either proposals and schedule impacts for?
I think my biggest ask is, and this is way beyond, I think their scope also, is the El Camino Real and Benton intersection. I feel like that's the biggest hurdle in any TOD benefits our site plan area might get from BART and Caltrain. And it's just such a leftover piece in our city. Like no one takes ownership of it. And I think somewhere we need to start taking ownership of that crossing.
So so for the traffic diet, I put Lafayette, Monroe, Homestead, Benton. I'll add El Camino too.
Yeah, I mean, El Camino is going to be a very big study of its own, but I just want to start putting it on some of the city priority lists.
But that's not within the boundary of the precise plan.
It's not, but it directly impacts the TOD success of our precise plan.
Yeah, so the issue is, Deborah, what we're trying to get at is, I think we've identified that we have some issues with, getting in and out of the downtown from a vehicular or even pedestrian standpoint. And so to improve that, those conduits is really important, right? But it's not part of the plan now, but it obviously is going to have a positive or an adverse effect on either one, the developers wanting to come in and even partake in the plan, or two, the long-term viability of retail and, those kind of spaces, right? If we can't get people in and out, you have serious issues, right? So, I mean, Los Gatos has experienced that when they closed down Santa Cruz Avenue going on the north side. They found that their attendance has dropped significantly when they close that down in the summer because they don't like people cutting through for 17.
Mr. Chair, this is Manuel again. Can I ask a clarification?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what he was meant by adding El Camino and Benton. Obviously, as part of the traffic analysis and the environmental document, we will look at access, circulation, and everything as it relates to where cars are coming in and out. So when we're talking about El Camino and Benton, are we just asking to make sure that intersection is included as part of the traffic analysis, or are we asking for something different?
I think we're asking for it to be included.
Improvements, right?
And what improvements should be made.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so I just want to, so likely it would be included as part of the traffic analysis, as part of an EIR. If not, we can check into that. But if there's a specific improvement that the task force is looking at, just wanted to get that clarification because that could change the scope of work.
Like a lane reduction?
Because if it is a lane reduction, that's a totally different issue, especially with that being a state highway. The outreach becomes much more significant even beyond Lafayette, and the scope increases significantly as well.
Yeah,
I think it's more crossing
just the
from the
crossing.
train station, right?
Yeah, how to get people from the train station over, is that?
Versus narrowing up El Camino at this point. It's more, is it bike lanes? Is it, right? What's that street segment cross section look like getting across?
Yeah, I think, Emmanuel, the concerns are not so much with like lane reductions, but making it comfortable for pedestrians to happily wanting to cross El Camino. Right now, it's like a 8-foot vertical wall no one wants to cross. So the idea is like, there can be just like, I understand like it's way beyond this project's scope.
I just want to make sure it's clear, because I think the chair was actually talking more about vehicular connections. Right?
No, I had mentioned it, Manuel, but I think I kind of did not speak correctly. It is the crossing. It's not trying to put the bus lanes and everything else that they've been trying to do down El Camino for a long time that have been unsuccessful. I wouldn't try to go down that path again. I think it's a lot of money and a lot of time, and it's still not going to happen even if you tried to do it again.
So, Chair?
Yes, sir.
With the way the university is developing on the opposite side of El Camino, should I put a feeler out to see if the university is doing any traffic studies or anything on El Camino?
I think that'd be great.
Because I think that would be a big component if we're adding new faculty housing across the street, different things like that. Let me see if the university has. Chan, have you heard anything from your end at all?
No, but
Okay.
I mean, I think when I went to the hearing about the building that they wanted to build on Campbell, there was concern from the sort of residents who live further in those housing developments that it would actually congest, like, because there's really only one inlet. So if you turn off of El Camino onto Campbell, it then sort of veers right, and then the baseball stadium's on the right. And then you have the university townhomes, and then the site is next to there. So then when you go further down in there, there's some housing development. So I know that the residents down there were very concerned about how much traffic or how much just more congestion that it might increase if we were to build, a multi-unit faculty building next. But I think that's as far as I know of. I don't know if there was a study done by the university after that hearing, like pre-COVID, but that was a big concern of some of the residents who live down Campbell.
Okay. Let me check into it with the university, see if there's any plans along El Camino and what their plans might be.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I got a question for you.
Just real quick, just to address Butch's comment.
Yeah.
I know we're talking about Benton and El Camino, but I mean, Butch, I know you guys have long-term plans for the Franklin. So if it's any of that area, right?
Yeah, of course.
Important to know, obviously.
Yeah,
I just don't want to make sure it's not specific and you get an answer of no, and then they're doing this big grand plan for the Franklin, at the other side. So
yeah, it could be
Thank you.
Alameda coming in. It could be a variety. I'll check on all of that for you.
Awesome. Thank
you.
I just, related to that intersection, Benton and El Camino is actually part of our station area. And that's an area that's of a lot of interest in, near term people wanting to help us do plans and such, because it's close to where BART is and transit is. So I do want you to know that intersection is going to be part of anything that is studied as part of a station area plan. If, something like that got funded and underway, because it serves not only as a conduit to downtown, which is really important, but obviously we want to have good connectivity to transit. So I just wanted people to have a sense that even though it's outside of the boundaries of downtown, it is just an important intersection that will be studied even as part of a different planning process. So it's another thing that you can put on like an implementation action list, but sometimes there are those things that are happening simultaneously and you may not have to budget for it, or, that is something that would be an intersection that would be studied as part of a different area plan.
That's a great point. Can we get a price for a station area precise plan? and we'll just move over to that when we're done.
You know, we are actually trying to get grant funding to do work there. So we're trying not to have anyone have to pay for it. But
Perfect. I like that even better, Rita. Thank you.
Yeah, but
So
you know,
I mean, I guess, should we nix that then? I guess I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this. We're just trying to ask, but I guess.
I mean, it's sort of, you guys are having a budget conversation right now.
Yeah.
And I feel like you need to just focus on like, what are the things you want to, you know, what is your wish
Exactly.
list, what do you want to fund? And I just feel like that there's like a whole bunch of things that you'll want to further your downtown, but maybe, you know, at some point especially if some other effort is going to like take that on, maybe you just stay tuned to that effort and
So maybe we just focus on like the Monroe and Lafayette and Homestead and Benton connection.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of stuff already.
I already said. Okay.
It does.
Well, I'm gonna nix.
That was my only point.
I'm gonna nix the El Camino piece. I'll just say the Lafayette, Monroe, Homestead, and Benton. You know, those arteries.
Rena, what's the timeline on those applications for the planning money? Is that state money or MT?
Yeah, it's state money. We put in for a competitive grant. So, you know, the state has a variety of different grants that they've given cities really to help us with like our housing, you know, trying to figure out housing. And that's something we put in, but it's a competitive grant. So it's not necessarily what they call over-the-counter grants where we're almost guaranteed the money. So it was, it's something that we already put in. I think the deadline was last Friday. So, you know, we'll probably find out in the next couple of months whether or not we got that grant funding. You know, other agencies have connected with us, like transit agencies, because this is a really important place for like BART and VTA to be successful. So, you know, there's, I wouldn't say I have a high degree of confidence that this will all get figured out, but I think there are a lot of different paths leading to the same place when it comes to trying to get a plan there, like underway.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Haven't done it yet, and I'm sure you will all
you're gonna
be
do it. We
involved.
believe in you,
Come
Rita.
on,
We
yes.
believe in you.
Way to go,
Positive
Rita.
energy.
And your
I am
team.
sure
And
you
your
will
team.
all be involved when we get the opportunity to do
Perfect.
something like that.
No, I like that idea that we defer that cost to that other plan, since, you know, it probably will get done in a reasonable amount of time as well, considering that we still are, you know, some time out from actually breaking ground. So that's good info. Appreciate it. Is there anything else we want to add to our request for pricing and potential schedule? Or does everybody want me to read them off one more time?
Sure.
Okay, so I got CEQA for Franklin Street easement. I have signage for buildings and storefronts, form-based code, updating zoning ordinance, but I put staff since staff already said that they would do it for free. Retail expert.
It costs money.
I thought you were going to do it on the weekend, Leslie. Retail expert on post-COVID environment. And that would probably kind of parlay into, I know they have the retail expert already somewhat included, so it would be just an add services to that. And then wayfinding, brand and branding, and then traffic diet for Lafayette, Monroe, and Homestead.
And the one thing I could say is you could always throw out there, is there anything else they recommend?
Oh yeah, it's a good idea.
Right, they're the experts.
No, that's a great point.
Could I mention something, Chair Adam?
Yes, Anna, go ahead.
Okay, I know the VTAs. Let's say that for whatever reason, the driverless trolley vehicle that the university isn't able to implement. There is a plan B, which would be working with VTA to have some kind of, and this was part of that discussion with the engineer we had at that presentation, how to add, you know, shuttles going every 10 minutes, where to direct those shuttles, you know, reconfigure the best locations for stops, things that will enhance our downtown experience. Is it possible to have that, and I don't know if this costs money, to have a specifically wrapped kind of VTA bus that probably, and we've talked about it before, that has more of a vintage quality that says this one's going downtown. You know, this is the bus you want to take to downtown. It's sort of distinguished from the rest of the VTA buses on that line. Is that an option? Is that cost money? Is that something, a conversation that has to be started with the board? How does that process get started?
I don't know. I mean, VTA is their own beast and animal. I mean, that's a whole different can of worms. I don't think that we would be prepared. I think we would have to take that on separately, Anna, and we'll work with VTA to see what can be done, to be honest.
Isn't our mayor on VTA board now?
Anna, I've got a couple ideas on that, and we can take offline.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple contacts at VTA that I've been working with for other things, and that I'd be happy to pass along and even help support the conversation. I don't know. I don't think that's something that we would encompass in this.
And another thing, it's kind of like nice to have lesser transit agencies so everything is connected in theory. Yeah. But I don't know if VTA will take the liability of doing autonomous trolley.
It doesn't have to be autonomous. It just has to have a dedicated downtown look to it, is what I was going for. For example, Monterey has a Cannery Row trolley that takes people from all the parking garages, from the train station, the university even, and it's wrapped a certain way, so you know that's exactly the downtown one, and that's the one you're going to jump on, and it's free, and it allows people to get on and off at the various stops. And that's done in Santa Barbara and a few other successful downtowns. But when we spoke to Monterey, the first thing they said is you need to kind of contact VTA. That was her recommendation, because that's your main transit system. So if Adam has some ideas, or Dan, or yourself, I understand you're working with VTA these days. You know, we can narrow down that conversation. Just wanted to throw it out there.
I mean, this is the last thing on this, because we're running out of time, but if you have a standard VTA line that goes through or near the area, aren't there benefits for the developers, i.e. TOD?
Sure.
That's kind of a question for the city.
In VTA's perspective, they already have a bus line going on Benton, don't they, from station?
And Monroe.
Yeah.
We have a few. There's 60, 81. There's a couple buses that are running around.
Okay.
Anna should definitely check into it. VTA is not adding additional capacity right now.
Yeah. Good point, Matthew.
They are bleeding in a way that you could only dream, and they've sort of frozen stuff, and the blood is so it's a very heavy lift. I think it's worth exploring, because everything's worth exploring, but probably almost
not right now.
Yeah,
is a
maybe we explore buying one of the buses.
Well,
there you go.
It's just like all the corporations, they have their own bus system, right? So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's the city, maybe we get a sponsor. Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
That's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
All right, getting back to this, because I want to wrap up. I know everybody, I'm trying to get better. I swear we're going to get to a 3-hour meeting. I promise everybody.
We are 3.5 hours.
We're getting close, though. So is there anything else? I like Rob's comment on just any additional services we're not thinking about beyond what we just discussed. So I left out the economic consultant for RFP and the P3 public-private partnership, because those would be outside the boundaries for this and really shouldn't be part of our request, I think. But it should be something that we potentially send with our plan that we would recommend city council to fund after we have a precise plan, to help support the plan and make sure that it actually gets developed.
My only one more addition will be is if they could give us some understanding of operating a downtown.
What do you mean? Sorry.
So like a CBD, or like, you know, the various operations, because every downtown usually would have a CBD or some other association, and that could be something that could be as small as, you know, to be studied as part of the later implementation strategy. But some initial framework would be good to get that discussion going in this plan.
So you're
Um,
are you talking a BID type of
A
downtown
PID type of
association
a
or
thing.
something?
Yeah, I've been researching a lot of downtowns around, and most of them, the successful ones have a downtown association because they can actively run and program and run the branding and arts program
Yes.
and all of
I-
those things.
I actually sat on the San Jose Downtown Association for 12 years.
Wow.
So got some background. I don't know if it would be appropriate for this. This is more city-based, going to the city itself and then seeing if the city wanted to institute a BID of some sort. I don't know if the WRT component would be necessary cost-wise.
Got it.
There is a BID in place already. It's just not active.
Right.
So
Mr. Sinclair from the Santa Clara Merchants Association. It exists and it runs the farmers market.
So one thing I'd like to say, Butch, thank you for making me, and I hope the rest of the DCTF members feel really good that we haven't been on this board for 12 years, only 2. We have a long way to go.
No, on this board too, but we've been on this project, what, 3-4 years now?
No, I know, but we still haven't
2017.
hit 12. We're still doing pretty good.
We're good. We're good.
Oh, God.
Sorry. All right. If there's no additional items, we should go to public comment. Is there anyone opposed to going to public comment at this time? All right, let's open public comment. If there's anyone from the public who would like to speak on this specific item, please raise your hand so we can call upon you. Going once. Going twice. All right, I don't see any hands. So do I have a motion to close public comment?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor of closing public comment, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. And the ayes have it. Public comment is closed. Is there any additional discussion on the budget request from the DCTF members? Or can I get a motion? Everybody gets quiet when I ask for a motion.
So do you want to make a motion to send our recommendations to WRT?
Well, this is just the budget. So, oh yeah, to send to WRT for pricing and schedule impact.
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All in favor of sending our request to WRT for budget and schedule impact, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. The ayes have it. All right, so now we can go into public presentations. So is there anyone that would like in the public that would like to address the task force on items that are not on the agenda this evening? Please raise your hand now and we can call upon you. Don't see any hands. So do we have a motion to close public comment or public presentation? Sorry.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor of closing public presentation, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. And the ayes have it. So is there a motion to adjourn the February 18th meeting? Leslie set me up to fail. She had the third.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor of adjourning the DCTF meeting of February 18th, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. And the ayes have it. Thank you, everybody, for the 14th or 15th meeting. I can't keep track anymore.
9:41.
I don't trust what's written on the page anymore either.
Thank you to
Hard
the
time.
city staff for all your help on this. It's appreciated. Your
Yes.
hard work
Yes.
is acknowledged and appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Team effort.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you all.
Good night.
All right, thank you. Have a good
Night.
evening.
Good night.
Leslie, you don't have to wait for everyone, do you?
What? No, I don't have to.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry, I was spacing